Welcome everybody to the Billwardlife and Acfn collaboration. We've been doing this event every month for the last 3 months, and here I'll just read it here. The purpose is to help individuals, families, organizations better understand addiction, spiritual malady that drives addiction and self-destructive behaviors. So that's my commitment. One of the things that I've I've really I try to promote. So I try to promote individual people getting help, families getting help, and organizations better understanding what alcoholics and addicts actually deal with and how to better support. And the underlying causes of addiction is what we've learned to be the spiritual malady. It's a spiritual illness that requires a spiritual solution. And that's one of the messages that I try to carry. The event philosophy for this particular event and many events that I'm a part of is adhering to the philosophy of one person, one family, and one community at a time. Billwardlife, and I know Acfn, is committed to providing tailored workshops, speaking engagements, and resources to the First Nations communities. My approach at Billwardlife is to inspire, educate individuals, families, and organizations to persevere, strengthen Indigenous culture, foster resilience and harmony through modern approaches, cultural practices, and interactive teaching. The mission here at my organization is to empower individuals, families, and communities to embrace their courage, truth, and self-awareness. By sharing personal stories of struggle and growth, we inspire others to pursue healing, harmony, and authenticity. True transformation lies within. It requires a deep desire and a commitment necessary to do this work. Um, so the overview and purpose of what we're doing, you know, Acfn reached out to me about 3.5, 4 months ago. Like other nations reach out to me and like other nations struggle, they were like, we need to try to do something to try to let people know that there's help out there. Is there something that we could do together? And we kind of talked about a few different options and we came up with this option. We wanted to maybe put together some Zoom sessions once a month, and this is where we are starting, where we could bring Indigenous people that have recovered from all different walks of life to show other people who might not know what recovery is and know what a sober life is and know that this can be a way of life. And so, because I'm well connected in recovery and in the Indigenous community of recovery, it was a fairly simple task for me to round up people, and I'm still rounding them up, and it hasn't been too hard because I know a lot of Native people, First Nations people that have really done the work and they've changed. And so I've been tasked with hosting these events, kind of putting them together with the help of Claudia at Acfn, and pulling these speakers in and trying to carry a message to our brothers and sisters out there. And I guess the goal would be, to inspire people to take that scary step, to inspire people to reach out and ask for help, to inspire our chief and councils and administration health staff to invest more time into helping our people who struggle with addictions. Maybe put more money into understanding what this illness is and putting more workers on the ground and doing more things like this because without a message being heard or a message being seen, people don't know that recovery is possible. And I know that because I work all over Western Canada with nations and non-nation people. And I've heard numerous times, like, I didn't even know this was out there. So it is out there and it's there for our people. And it's not an easy path, but it's a well worth it path. So today we got a real good overview of speakers. We got speakers from our territory down here in Treaty 7. I'm actually a Treaty 8 guy from Driftpile. So we have my daughter Lucy, who is her roots are from Driftpile. She's had her own little struggles with addiction and the spiritual malady. And, it's been a battle for her in different parts of her points of her life. And so my own daughter is here speaking today, and I'm very proud to have her here and, to watch her follow the red road path. I grew up without my culture most of my life. When I got into recovery, I found it. And she's luckier. She found it younger and she's really digging into her culture. And she'll be also singing a song today and speaking on that song. So, but before Lucy, we have a few other speakers. We have Austin Woods. He's from Siksika. He's been sober, I think, just a little over 3 years now. And he battled alcoholism and addiction for a good chunk of his life. A lot of our reserves and nations, it's hard to get away from. But he will attest to in his story how he heard a message from somebody and it hit him somehow and he wanted to change and he did the things that were conducive to making that change happen. And now today I can tell you for sure this guy is a light carrier, he's a message carrier. And it was because somebody sparked it in him. And that's what we're trying to do with this. And then his mom, Waynette, who's also from Siksika, she's here speaking. She'll be the second speaker today. And, another beautiful human who's really come a long, long way. Also, I think somewhere around 3+ years of sobriety. And when I say sobriety, I don't even really mean sobriety. Sobriety is just like not drinking. You know, what we have here is a collective group of people who seek recovery. The definition of recovery is getting well from an illness or an injury. And the illness or injury that we have is a devastating one. And these people are really digging in and they're really doing this deal for real. So Waynette's she's an inspiration to a lot of moms and a lot of Indigenous ladies in recovery. I was at a meeting the other day and I heard her share and, just wanted to cry because she's so grateful. I could hear her gratitude in her message and, she gives the best hugs in case anyone wants to know. If you ever run into her, just ask her for a big hug. And Mr. Dryneck, Mr. Robert Dryneck, he's taken 8 years, coming from the Northwest Territories, Litchlow lands, way up north, mostly west of Yellowknife. There's big territory up there, and that's where Robert's from. And, he spent his life surrounded by addiction. And, he heard something and, went to a treatment center and he never looked back. This guy's just killing it down here in Calgary. I know he's had many opportunities to go back home too, and he knows he knows what's good for him, and so he stays here. Our environment is such a big part of our recovery, and Robert surrounds himself with uplifting environment, and as a result, he's been able to knock off 8 years of sobriety and recovery, and and he keeps growing and learning. Just trying to quit smoking right now, and it just never ends, right? It's a good deal, the stuff that we do. And myself, I guess, just a little touch on myself. I'll be turning 10 years sober in March of next month. The 22nd of March is my sobriety birthday, and I'm really proud of that. I'm really thankful that Creator has blessed me with this new life where, I don't have to feel all the pain that I felt for most of my life. And and I get to do things like this, and recovery has basically opened up a whole new world for me in every aspect. It's made me a better father, a better partner, a better human being in general, and it allows me to be who I wanted to be the whole time, but I didn't know how to be. So, Bill will open up with a prayer and a brief reflection on his recovery as relates to the personal pipe song. So I'm going to open us up with a prayer. I will sing a song. I don't know if it's going to be the personal pipe song or not, but I will sing a prayer and we'll get this party started. Okay, here we go. Aí, Victor Magno. Cahill, Victor Magno. Kisagan Pisam, Victor Magno. Neil Gate Wasin, Victor Magno. Xanap Yutan, Victor Magno. Hukawima, Victor Magno. Grandmothers and grandfathers, Creator, I thank you for this beautiful day today. Thank you for bringing us all together here on this technology and in my humble abode here at my house with people on the path of trying to change their lives and carry a message to those who are still struggling out there. I thank you for the opportunity to share my experiences and my strength and my hope with other people. I thank you for giving me the ability, Creator, to look within inside myself to see the parts of myself that weren't really serving this world and myself or other people, giving me an opportunity to change and grow and use those experiences for something good. I thank you, Creator, for allowing me to use my greatest deficit as an addict alcoholic as my greatest asset in the life in this world today. I just ask for anyone listening or tuning in or rewatching it on the social media platforms, mine or ACFN's, that they might get something out of this and take a step in the right direction and know that they're not alone. I thank you for my life today, Creator. Hi, hi. Okay, I'm gonna sing a little song. Hopefully, I don't forget the words. Nia Wendigo Con Kiss a Manitou. Hey oh hey oh hey oh hey oh hey. Hey oh hey oh hey. Hey oh hey oh hey. Hey oh 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 hey. Hey oh hey oh hey oh hey. Nia Wendigo Con Kissing Manitou. Hey oh hey oh hey oh hey oh hey. Hey oh hey oh hey. Hey oh hey oh hey. Hey oh 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 hey. Hey oh hey oh hey oh hey. Nia Wendigo come. Kisaku me too boo young. Hey oh hey oh hey oh hey oh hey. Hey oh hey oh hey. Hey oh hey oh hey. Hey oh 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 hey. Hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey. From what I know, I think that's it's more of a Hyoka song, which means a clown song, backward song, and I don't know much about the teaching of the song, so I don't want to overstep my boundaries on what I think I know about something that I don't. But just in perspective, the world is full of like black and there's white and there's right and there's left and there's always an opposite for everything. And so the Hyokas or the contraries in our culture help with balance because we need balance, right? It can't always be awesome all the time. We're humans and we need to balance our lives. And so the Hyokas, they help with the balance. And and that song talks to that a little bit, but I don't know exactly what it has to say because I'm still learning so much about the songs and the teachings. So, like I said, I don't want to talk too much about it. But anyway, let's get into our first speaker. Our first speaker is Austin Woods. Mm, he's a good friend of mine, although I was a little hard on him today because he was a little bit late. I'm trying to get this the show on the road. But life happens, right? And life happens and he's always there helping people. He's always doing good things in this world. And him and I both know, and sometimes I forget that, we're on God's time. This is God's plan, and things are gonna go how they're gonna go. And in the same breath, we also gotta do what we have to do and try to be accountable for the things that we do right and for the things we do wrong, right? Um, but my friend Austin is from Siksika. He drives into Calgary almost every day to help somebody or carry a message at a different fellowship meeting or just helping people or doing, mentorship, sponsorship work with people. He came here today and brought one of the guys he's helping. Like this guy's whole life is just like dedicated to like helping people. So Austin, if you can unmute your mic and let's see your pretty face on the camera. We will get you going here pretty quick. So while Austin gets prepared here, and then I see Buck on the screen. Buck's from the same nation as Austin. Probably came out to watch him. But Austin's gonna share a little bit of his strength and hope. And there's his pretty little face right there. Okay, Austin, you're gonna take it away, bro. And thank you for being here. Really appreciate you.
All right. Thanks, Bill. As you heard it earlier, pretty well said. I'm from Siksika. My name's Austin. I am an alcoholic, and I'm just really grateful and honored to be here and to be in this situation where very few are situated. Um, like a way of life, in a sense, is part of my reason why I'm here. Um, it's not just the rooms. I just go to AA and then leave and then come back. There's a lot more to do with the 12-step fellowship that I've been through and a bit of my background growing up and my history of like my culture. Like I'm a Blackfoot man and, I reside in the Treaty 7 territory. And there's a lot of teachings that I've heard growing up from my grandfather and just a vast of teachings. And, like part of me, who I am is, like my mother would always say, you got to remember too, you're also a Blackfoot man that you come from a background of history. And today, I think of these things and where I was growing up, there was a lot of disconnection growing up. No matter how much I put my life into this whole world, I've tried to fit in some way or somehow. And it just never seemed to be satisfied. I try to be like this person. It would work for so long, but it just end up I got disconnected again. So, with my faith and my journey, it was very, very weak, growing up. I've heard it many times that, believe in God and this and that, but it was part of me was like I didn't understand what I was doing or what I was hearing. So, when that being said, my mother would always, be there. I've seen my mom, go through a lot when I was growing up, and that's part of my life. Like I felt so normal to that stuff, and to see that growing up, it's like my sisters were affected by this, and this alcoholism. We're all affected, and my father was, and it just felt like, is this really my mom? Is this who she really is? Look at all these other moms growing up. I go to school and my friends have, sober moms and they were, to me, it was like a normal thing. They're normal, and my mom seems different. So, like today, I'm really grateful that my mom, I just want to kind of share a bit of hers, what I've seen from my experience, and she's stayed sober since. I never thought she'd get sober this long. She's just shy under me a month, and it's a miracle of what God can do for what we cannot do for ourselves. Um, you know, this this is something that I'm always grateful for. The pain that my mom been through, and for me to see that as a son, it's something awesome. So like today, I have this, like just if you're struggling, if you're really going through a lot of shit, whether you're if if a family member or if anybody that's close in this addiction, it's a pretty serious stuff. If we don't see it on the outside and the inside of us, this shit will destroy who you are with or around with. This stuff will take your life. So just to reiterate, kind of going back to where I come from, my faith journey was, like I said, it started pretty weak. And for some reason I just was going through a lot of shit in my life. In the past some up all these years, my life became so dependent on alcohol. That's all I knew when I first took that drink. I felt so good about it. I got the people around me, I made the friends, and I started getting to interact social about it. And I started drinking just every once in a while, and became vast more every weekend to like pretty much almost every day. And I drank, I hid my drinks, I tried everything. I tried the hard stuff, the beer, the wine. Nothing was ever fitted properly. I drank whatever I wanted and I felt the way I wanted. So, I didn't know that I was suffering from a lot of stuff. I was suffering from really knowing what Bill was talking about earlier. It was a spiritual malady. I didn't understand that kind of term, going through this program. It's actually it affects everybody, no matter who you are. It's not just addictions. It's people that struggle this malady, this sickness, and it drives our behaviors. It drives the things that we don't are really not normal to our society. We treat people differently. We hurt people. We step on the toes of people, and we don't really care for this shit, man. And we just do it because we want to live our own life in that kind of malady. And that was really me growing up. My drinking didn't care for who you were, how much money you made. I just drank, and that's what I did. And I was suffering from, in our literature, it talks about, like in a doctor's opinion of the big book, that we have this allergy. I can only set it off when I put booze in my system. I guess not everybody has it in this world, but people that have this, it's a pretty potent, toxic thing to have in our body. It's something that I never created. I don't know. Maybe I was born with it, but I just know I can't drink safely. And I constantly think about this stuff, man. I constantly think about the booze and the booze and the booze. And no matter where I am in this world, no matter where I am situated, I'm always thinking about this booze. I want to get drunk. Yeah, I want to feel good. It's all about feeling good inside. And, like, my journey with this AA shaped me. My sponsor, I call him today. Um, I never heard of sponsorship. I never heard of this way of life. And, on August 15th of 2021, I was going through some stuff, and I just remember hitting this really deep depression, man. I sobered up. I think it was like about 3 days sober in, and I relapsed prior to that weekend, and then I sobered up on that last day on 15th of August, and that's the day where things changed. I remember I was driving, and I just got into my deep thought in my head, and I really wanted to take my own life. I really was thinking of driving in front of vehicles. That's how much I've been contemplating my life all these years. I wanted to just try to end my life somehow because I couldn't bear the way I felt when I was sober. Um, Alcohol took me to the point where there was nothing left of me. I tried to fight staying sober, and I tried to fight not when I was drinking. So I was kind of in between both sides, and I didn't know what to do about it. And here I am today. I got some sort of this gift that we don't all get. Some people die from this stuff, and some people are struggling right now. And I remember I reached out to a member in our AA, and he read something out of the book that really changed my life. And it was when I heard that message, I really wanted something. I've seen this guy, help this other young fella, and I was like, wow, I want that. And from there, I just grown since then, through the 12 steps. And there was a lot of stuff that, when it's like when you judge a book by its cover, you don't understand it at first. You just kind of assume what it is. And I don't want that kind of shit. And it's in our rooms, man. It's in our program of AA. People judge by the book by its cover. And I've seen it countless many times, like countless so many times where it's like you don't know this book until you actually do the book. And my faith today with what I believe is, Jesus Christ is really my faith today. I've felt this connection with him, and of course, I've been up through ups and downs through this, but I realize, AA has got me back to where I should be, brought me back to the power that I need to live again. It's telling me I can't do this alone anymore. Start to work with others and start to get people connected to what they want in this program, get them going on their feet. So, um, with the recovery part of my life and the faith, when I combine those two today, it's feeling this, this gratitude, this something that I can't explain, but I know the love and the sensitivity I have today, it's working. I used to be angry growing up. I used to have this anger all the time too. Never really understood it, but I held it in so good that you guys wouldn't even know I was angry. That's how much I did. And if I had to show it to you, I do it in maybe seek another woman, or maybe I do it in relief of pornography, stuff like that. I did in many other ways too. But when I look at myself in this room, and then when I went through the steps, step five, I just kind of want to mention this. What really brought everything out, me and my sponsor, we took some time on this step and we didn't rush it, but he really dug deep about it, and there was a lot of stuff that I let out, and it relieved a lot of this pressure that was in me that I held so long, and I felt really like, wow, this feeling they talk about, you feel this relief. Um, with that being said, um, just to be here sober, I just want to kind of talk about where I'm at now. Just to being sober is not just really the only thing that I'm grateful for. The stuff that I've been through and I've seen and I've experienced through this addiction, it's very cunning and baffling and powerful, man. It our society out there today don't understand this alcoholism, what we understand it now, like the spirituality and all this stuff, and like these treatment centers and these self-help programs that try to enforce these things on our people that are dying from this shit. They don't know who they really are. It's the best house cleaning step we have in our program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and there's a lot of stuff that you like it can bring out of you. So, um, I wanted to just thank, like people in my life today. One of them is he's on here, Michael. He's been part of my journey. And Bill, he introduced me to Bill, and I didn't know who Bill was. When I first heard him, I thought, wow, that's a lot of swearing, man. I was telling Mike, I was like, this is a lot of swearing. I'm not used to it. Well, I heard my dad swear growing up, but I was like, I remember my mom, she was like, who's that swearing when we're first on this big book study? And I was like, ah, yeah, that's Bill. So we got used to it, and it's not just about the way his swearing is. It's about the message, man. It's about what he's carrying and what he's experienced, and that's what got me back into getting more involved. Was my sponsor encouraged me to get involved in these services and to do something about what I needed to do because I was on the brink of dying, and today, I'm in that position of neutrality, safe and protected. That's where my life is based in because God is doing for this stuff, for me that I cannot do for myself. Like I said before, God is the power of everything. He does these because, he cares for us. I always kind of hear about people saying God is a condemning God. He's a hateful God. But no, he's really what I've heard not long ago. He's shaking the shit that needs to come out of you. We ask for these things when we pray about them, and we get them. So just to be mindful, God is a real working human, also human being in my life as well. I've seen these miracles happen in people. And yeah, just to be on this podcast today, and it's to know the history of this disease and having this chance to get again to be in this chair and to come here with at least try to smile. And I know I'm not no king, no chief, nothing like that. I'm no better than anyone. I'm just the same level as people that are spiritually sick as well. I got to remember that they're sick, that some people are still going to try get better, and I have to be open-minded and willingness and honest within myself that, hope that they get a chance. And I just want to end off with this. Um, with me being here, and I just kind of want to bring my buddy in here. His name's Carlin, and this guy, he's been through a lot, and I've seen him at his worst. And what really makes this program out of me is when you see another person go through a lot of shit. You want to you want to do so much at that time, but right now, at that moment, when I seen him in his most worst state, it's like God gave me this feeling of compassion, kindness to maybe reach out my hand to him. I gave him a ride home, and from there, I just noticed he came back. This guy wanted everything what I wanted, and he wanted to do the things that I wanted, and I just tell him, hey man, this stuff takes work. It's no one says it's gonna be easy. No one's gonna say this journey is gonna be easy. It's gonna take work, and it has to be, focused on the recovery. We can't focus on any relationships. We can't focus on what's gonna put us away from this opportunity that we don't all really get. And this is your chance, man. And God's gonna do these things for you that you don't understand, or maybe you'll understand down the time of that road. But right now, if you really want to get better, maybe come with me to these meetings. So these stuff I really encourage him to do and to get involved in, these stuff. And he's really, really wanting this. So I wanted to kind of have him kind of share with him too. And yeah, that's where everything's at. I'm 3 years, 6 months sober 5 days ago, and August 15th was a day where I wanted to get better, man. After that depression, that all that sickness, I couldn't bear anything. I just went from there, and it's been amazing. So, I'm so grateful to be here, Bill, and I'm really honored to have you, me on here. And thanks, man. I really appreciate it. I'm hoping, people out there can get this chance that are suffering from whatever it is, gambling, sex, whatever. Thanks.
Okay, bro, keep your mic on, stay on the line. If anyone from the gallery, from the crowd wants to ask Austin any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask him. But I'm going to ask him a few questions. So when you were in your addiction, living out on Siksika, and you had started your story by saying that you didn't know that there was recovery out there. Is that true?
Yeah, I didn't know there was really recovery. Yes.
Okay, so you got sober for a little bit, and then did you go to a meeting, or did one of your workers at Siksika tell you about a meeting? How did you find even your first step?
If it's my first meeting by somebody, it would be my grandpa and it was my mom. So my grandpa and my mom talked about this meeting.
And then you went to the meeting, and then you heard a man share, and that man is actually on the screen today, eh?
Yes, and he's part of that as well.
And I know Michael, and he's a good man, and he carries the message to out to the nations, some nations, and yours in particular. He always liked going out to the Siksika meeting, and you heard that, and you asked him to help you, and through the relationship that you built with Michael, what kind of things have you learned through the relationship with your sponsor that has been really helpful?
What? The main focus on this point with Michael was, like to really look at the things not just only on the outside, but the inside. And it was focused on, helping others, get the steps in you. And that was my main focus was just to share this message that I've been through and then to share with others. And he really helped me on that journey a lot through that big book. So that's where it's at.
And what kind of things did you look at when you did the work that you did? Like, what were some of the main highlights of the stuff that you had you put pen to paper, right?
Yes.
And so when you did pen to paper, what were some of the things that you had to look at that you never really looked at before?
A lot of There was a lot of deep stuff. I didn't know I was based in a lot of fear. Maybe finding out who I really am. People find out who I am. They may Austin's like this or Austin does this stuff. Um, so there was a lot of fear based in that. I didn't want to know people who I really am deep inside, and that was one of the major components out of me to express to Michael about that.
And then as you guys have built the relationship, which has been many years now, he's he's been able to hold you accountable with your own actions, correct?
Yeah, for sure.
And sometimes that's a tough pill to swallow, eh?
Very tough at times, yes.
Yeah. And so, a lot of people try to get sober on their own and they try to quit on their own, and to each their own. Like however anyone wants to do it, they can do it however they want. But um being in the business of recovery, I've seen a lot of things, and I've seen a lot of things that work and I've seen a lot of things that don't work. And one of the best ways to really like find contentment and not just be sober, because recovery is different than being sober, and I know you're in recovery, um is you got to look at yourself in a very critical way, and you got to look at yourself and see the things that you're doing in your life that are not serving you or the people around you. The problem with that is, like you kind of described it earlier, is these resentments and these fears and these behaviors and these attitudes and these judgments. These things run our lives. And until we like bring light to that darkness, they will always run our life. And you and I know, and a lot of people don't know, that this is why we drink, right? We drink because of these things. And unless we expose them and kind of bring light to them and like try to let them go, we'll drink because our brain will drink because it always needs relief from the way that it used to operate, right? So you know, I guess what do you do today to maintain your sobriety?
What I really do to maintain it is to really let God work with me, to work with the people that He wants me to work with. I just obviously that looks like going to meetings. That looks like anywhere actually than just the meetings itself. It could be my family, my friends. So that's what it really is based in, is I really don't, it's not because I don't really look at myself only, but I'm doing it out of the things that I've learned and what I was been taught. And these are beneficial to my recovery long term, to my last breath. So it's it's pretty much based in what I want to do now. So that's
Um,
what God is doing for what I can't, right? What I can't do for myself.
Amazing, amazing, bro. So, does anyone from the floor have any questions or comments for Austin before we slot in our next speaker?
Sure, I'll say something. Um,
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Bill, for holding this. And Austin, yeah, I just wanted to say, what an inspiration you are. And, your whole family has just really become, really dear to my heart. And, I'm so proud of you and all the work you've put in. It hasn't always been an easy road, but, you've stayed where you needed to stay. And you kept in mind where your power comes from. And I've just always been so proud of you for that. So anyway, God bless you. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, I just got a text saying that Shannon is hiding on the screen somewhere. Shannon, do you want to unmute and ask Austin the question? Okay. Well, looks like Shannon's not that great at running her Zoom controls yet. So at some point, Shannon, if you do figure it out, you can definitely come back on and ask that question. So in the meantime, we will get Austin to shut off his camera and microphone, and we will swap out speakers with his mom, Waynette, and I will do a little bit of an intro on Waynette. So I met Waynette about the same time as Austin, maybe a little later. Yeah, I probably didn't meet her till a little later, and I had heard about Waynette a little bit through Austin's sponsor, and she wanted to get sober. And typically, the way that we work is men work with men and women work with women. And in this instance, it just seemed right for a man to work with a woman. If a man's motives are totally in check, it can be done in a good way. And then usually what happens is the woman will seek out women supports later. What I found about women in recovery is a lot of them don't trust other women. It's very interesting. A lot of them do not trust other women, but they will trust men. So at first in the journey, because the spiritual malady is actually what's running the person's life, and the spiritual malady, this is what it is. Looks like resentment, looks like fear, looks like judgment, looks like self-pity, looks like being a victim, looks like being over egocentric and like overcompensating for deficiencies with like maybe money, vehicles, shiny things, goods, and deflecting through behaviors. Like the spiritual malady is very cunning, and that's actually what drives us, right? So a woman will typically want to have a male sponsor, but down the road they will seek out female counsel because they are female. And because the initial work in recovery, and there is work, it starts breaking down the ego, and the ego wants to protect the person. And the ego is protecting us, but it is actually killing us at the same time. And so as the ego kind of gets broken down, it starts opening itself up to being more open-minded, and there's some healing that has begun. And so people will reach out and try different things because the ego doesn't have the clench on them like it used to. And so it's a very interesting journey. So Waynette used to not look you in the eye. She used to look at the floor. She used to not speak at meetings. She wouldn't really speak to like people, or at least me. And and I didn't take it personally. And when she started working with her mentor, her sponsor, like it was like a flower blooming and just living. And she has so much gratitude for her life today and her son and the people in her life and for recovery. And like she looks you in the eye, and like I said, she gives the best hugs, and she's just always there now and doing and living her best life. So Wynette, if you could unmute and uncamera yourself, we will see your pretty face and get you to say some things. There she is. Can you pull your computer screen down just a little bit, Wayne? Not quite as tall as Austin. There we go. So, Waynette, you can have the floor, and thank you so much for being here and coming to share your experience with other men and women. And take it away, my dear.
Hi, my name's Waynette. I'm an alcoholic. I'm grateful to be here. Thank you, Bill, for inviting me to this podcast. Um, this is my first time being on a podcast like this and speaking online, something like this today. But for me as an alcoholic, I've come a long ways because I'm very nervous, and yeah, I'm very shy. I was, very, very quiet for many years. I never really talked. I never really looked at people in the eyes. I never wanted to even speak to another female or a man, to look at them because, I'm too shy. I'm too nervous to look up to them because I was scared to see through them or myself as, the kind of person I am. It took, it took me a long time to come to understand Waynette. I've been an alcoholic for 33 years, and I come from Siksika Nation. I have 4 kids, 9 grandkids. I think to me in myself that I am a good mother. um that's all I know, is that I'm a good mother because I raised my 4 kids. And the 4 kids that I have, they all got their degree except for one. The 3 that I looked after, they stuck through me, through, their mom being an alcoholic. They've seen me blacked out. They've seen me fall. They've seen me, all the stuff that in me that's just not normal to them, and they got used to it along the way. Um, but because I raised my kids, is because of the upbringing that I was raised in my background was a Christian. The person that raised me, took me in, um, because of my dad and my birth mother. They were alcoholics. I've been taken away from child welfare back in, I think my dad said 73, 74, 75, when child welfare intervened because my mom and dad would drink around, leave me around. I could just vividly remember going places while my mom and dad were drinking. I grew up with that. Grew up seeing my grandmothers drink. Grew up seeing all that stuff around me. But growing up, as a little girl, I didn't really remember much, but I did see, my birth mother drink. And I remember my mother was a very kind, gentle soul. She was a very clean lady. She'd always laughing. She looked beautiful. Um, See, that's the key for me, is my mother. She's not here today. She passed away when I was around 7.5 years old. That's when child welfare intervened. But, that doesn't mean that I'm angry with my dad, because I don't know. I don't know that about alcoholism. I don't know about this stuff. I don't know. Basically, I don't know. But moving in with somebody that took me in, brought me, in a Christian way. I remember his love, his care. I remember seeing all the stuff that, growing up and seeing him doing all his work. He's not an alcoholic. He never has touched alcohol in his life, cigarettes, tea, coffee, stuff like that. But I seen that, and I grew like that. But what I'm trying to say is that even though I went to church every Sundays, we did a lot of stuff, Growing up, I was never home. I was always going to Calgary, going to Stampede Wrestling, church, mountains, um, just auction sales. I grew up seeing all this. I never seen alcohol in the house. But as I got to a certain age where I was allowed to, have friends come over and, interact with my cousins. But to him, he didn't want me going places out there, like, to my cousins or friends or whatever, because he knew something wasn't, he didn't tolerate us to go out there to visit family and friends. I didn't understand why. I couldn't understand why I couldn't go to friends or cousins. So I didn't really ask him questions too. I don't ask questions. I just sit there quietly. I just live my life like just growing with how he raised me. Never asked him this, that, blah, blah, blah. I just very quietly. So as I grew up and I started to understand life slowly but surely, but there's a part of me in the back where when I used to go to school, when I was going to school, I started to get tormented by my own nation people when I was a little girl, kindergarten, nursery, grade 1, grade 2. I used to have been told, Waynette, you're ugly. You're ugly, you got ugly clothes, your braids are ugly. And they'll laugh at me and they'll kind of brush it like, ew, don't touch her, don't even look at her. And I'll be standing there like, what is that supposed to mean? Huh. And I'll be like, okay, kind of in my own little world, like, okay, just move on, kind of just go play in a playground or whatever, right? And so I went along with that. But it got worse and it got progressed and it got to the point where every time I go to school, I'd be made fun of, laughed at. They even like, my own people that when I get on a bus, they'd spit ball straws at my head, trip me on a bus, call me terrible names. So I remember these stuff. Sometimes the bus driver would kind of tell, stop, don't do that, but it wasn't enough. But I'd sit there in my seat crying, looking out the bus window, thinking like, what did I do for them to, hurt me and talk to me like that? So I left it at that, and I go home, I crying, go to my room, crying my head off on a bed. My parent that was raising me would come in and tell me, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I won't tell him because I was scared to tell him what the students were doing to me at school. So, but finally I got that little bit of a courage. At that time, I didn't know what courage was, but I felt this like I was kind of like a little mouse, kind of like I finally opened up. I said, I'm being bullied. They're calling me these names. Why are they calling me these names? And I cry. So he would step in and tell me that, there's nothing wrong with you. It's not them. It's the parents. It's the parents, what they say and talk, it's them. It's the parents that not raised in a Christian way. It's because of this, the parents, they grew up like that, but they still didn't get it. But fast forward that when I hit junior high, I felt something in me to, like, something that changed in me that I started to get more like nervous. Fear was kicking in a little bit, like shy. When I hit junior high, I was so like, first time I've ever experienced to really feel nervous and shy to hit junior high. I went to junior high. I started interacting with all these junior highs at the school where I was going to. And I, did, mind my own business. I was just really shy, just very like kept to myself. I didn't look at anybody, just, just walking on that path, going to school, just mind my own business. But I was really scared. I didn't know anybody at that school, going to another school. But I met these two girls that came up to me. They said, oh, hi, you're new to the school. And I look at them and I kind of look down fast and I'll be like, yeah. And then they say, oh, okay, well, welcome to our new school. And they kind of made me feel welcome in that. But I got to know these girls in junior high and I liked them. They made me feel comfortable. They made me feel welcome in that moment. But when I got too comfortable with them, I was really wanted to interact with them grade 7. So I did, got along with them, and then all of a sudden something my friend, I I invited my friend. I want to go to a concert back in 87, 88. I went to this concert called, Motley Crue and, Cinderella, all that band back then. And I got to go. My uncle let me go. And I went, and that's when they invited me to alcoholism. 2 friends. And I didn't know I didn't understand the alcohol in that moment when they went downtown to have to get drinks. They must have knew about alcohol, but I seen it. I been around it, but I wasn't allowed to touch alcohol because of my parent told me do not touch. And I listened to that. But because my 2 friends invited me to that stuff, they asked me if I want some, and I said no. And they said, why? And I said, I know, I don't want the drink. They're okay. So they moved on. They're talking like, most us young teenagers will be. So the second time they asked me again, and I said, no, that's the second time. And but the third time they asked, and I said, okay, I gave in. I finally gave in. I took that first drink of whiskey with coca candy. I guess they call it shooter or whatever, chasers or whatever. And when I took that first drink, that was it. I just felt something in me that it felt heated into my throat, down into my body. And I was sitting on the ground with them. They were chit-chatting, just laughing and everything. They were already ahead of me. But me, I was sitting there and I didn't feel it yet. I didn't feel like I didn't feel like, moving my body all over, but I took more drinks with them. And then we had to leave. And then I think this is where when I stand up, oh my gosh, I was literally just wobbling. And I told my friend, I said, what is this? And then she said, walk straight. And I said, walk straight? How do I walk straight? I'm really drunk. And she would tell me, she goes, well, we're going to walk to the Saladon. We're walking by. The other friend was trying to hold me, but because I was so down out drunk, my first time I experienced alcohol in my system, they were both trying to hold me and walk me back to the Saladon, but the other girl couldn't handle me, so she just ditched. But my other friend stayed back and she was hanging on to me always to the Saladon. By the time I got to the Saladon, I was just like out of it. But I don't know. I managed to get into a Saladon and went in, and she changed my shirt. She was trying to feed me food and water. I was still drunk. And I started crying. I started puking. I was in the bathroom just puking everything that was inside me. And I just couldn't stop puking. So that's when I started to know something, why I felt like that. So that was my first drink, but it did progress after that. It started to take me over. I wanted to go back for more. And when I went back for more, again, the second time I went out drinking again with my friends, I got drunk again. I was blacked out. And I don't remember the second time. I just remember being in a house. I was so blacked out, I don't remember what I said or what I've done. And I had to ask my friend, like, what happened? Like, did I do anything wrong? And they laughed at me because you were just all over the floor. You were just dancing like crazy. And I thought, oh my gosh, I was embarrassed. So to me, I didn't, it was embarrassing for me at that moment, but I didn't care. I wanted more. So I went out and I was gone for all weekend. My family were looking for me and they left. They picked me up, but still, it didn't take me long. I went back to school. Weekend came. I wanted some more. I was lying to my uncle that raised me. I said, I want to go back to my friend. I was having a good time. I was having fun over there. And he didn't know I was drinking. He didn't know that, what I was doing. So I did. I went back and say it was a routine. It was, but I still was going to school and I finally graduated grade 9. When I graduated grade 9, I met somebody I was very young when I met this person. And the guy that I was with, we met back in 91. I had uh, the man that I was with, those are my 4 kids, the same father. And when I he used to, when I started dating him, he would pick me up, and then he would tell me, I'd like to pick you up and let's go on, I thought date, you go to dinner or movie or whatever. But this guy that picked me up, he would pick me up in his vehicle, and we leave. All he was bringing me is back to his family, and he would be drinking hardcore. And when he started drinking, he drinks, him and his family, when they drink hardcore. They really drink hard liquor. And I was sitting there and I'm like, sitting there like, is this what? So I just sat there, even though I had money in my pocket, but I did not go there to drink with them. I just sat there and I just, because I don't know his family that well at that time. I just sat there quietly. So he kept doing that every week, and he would pick me up, bring me out there for him to, be with him. But I'm so grateful that, I didn't drink with him at that time, but I left it at that. So then, July of 91, that's when we started to live together. In July of 91, we lived together, and then he moved in with me because I had my own place. I was still going to school. I had my own house because my dad gave me a place to live. So I've been on my own since 16 and a half years old, and he stayed with me. And then we started drinking together at my place. We buy a flat of beer, they call it Budweiser, but um, we we drank together. Oh no, before I even drank together, he started bringing family, his family and my friends to come over and drink at my place. But for some reason, I didn't want to drink. I just told him, I said, it's okay, I don't feel like drinking. So I just kept quiet, stayed in my room. But the fact is, he came into the bedroom while he was half cut. He was like, you're not drinking? How come you're not drinking? And I looked at him and I said, I don't feel like drinking. I'm not in the mood to drink. And that's when I experienced my first abuse. My first abuse being, beat up from my husband just because I won't drink with him. So as it progressed, I gave in, and just being abused, being put in the hospital by my partner that abused me because I won't drink with him. And I took it in. I would take off from him and I leave, and I really, really ended up in the hospital because my partner beat the shit out of me. But even though he beat the shit out of me, I thought to me at that time, that just means love. And I took it in when he beat the crap out of me. But I still went back to him. And so days later, my family, I didn't want to tell my family, I didn't want to tell nobody that this man is, putting his hands on me, because I've never been hit in my life. Where I was raised, I've never been slapped or hit until I met this man. I started to get hit and I couldn't understand, but just by going back to day school, these kids would bully me through words. Yeah, I get that. But the guy that I'm with, it was I was in shock, and I didn't know who to go to for help. But I ran to my neighbor for help, and they phoned my parent that raised me, and I ended up in a hospital with black eyes, bleeding face. Um, so so it was going on like that for a long time. But then again, I come to realize something's not right here. And I we both apologized to each other. He apologized and he would tell me, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't mean to, do this to you. He didn't tell me why. He just says, I'm sorry. And I just look at him quietly, and it's not my head. So I left it at that. So anyways, fast forward, it was going like that for too long. And I started having kids from him. I had kids from him, and I had 4 kids from the same man, and I still was drinking. After doing all that, I had to like get help. I started back then they used to have those 1-800 numbers. But there was not I've never heard of programs on My Nation yet. Just the 1-800 numbers I used to see on the um the commercials, the 1-800 to call. But I did that, but I was scared. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to talk because I don't know how to speak for myself. I don't know how to speak on myself, how to talk, because I was told to be quiet. So anyways, fast forward, like now today, I been since not 96 is when I lost my kids through child welfare. Got all my kids taken away because of my alcoholism. And after when I um, went for help, I gave in and to a therapist because I did that for me because nobody didn't tell me go for a therapist, go for counseling, go blah blah blah. Something in me just go get help just so I can get my kids back, and I did. I did something that was telling me go for help, and I did. I was the only one that did that for myself at that time in 96. So I finally got in and I talked to a therapist about my life, and it stemmed from there. So from 96 to 2004, finally 2004, I went into programs in Calgary, Alberta, because I moved to Calgary in 99 to get away from my abused relationship. And then 2000, I stayed, from 99 to 2000, I lived in Calgary. But then I got caught I got a new house back in Siksika. I moved back, and then from there, I stayed in the house. But I was back and forth, getting away from my partner, from all this mental, physically, emotionally, and spiritually abused because of the way I am. It's because of I couldn't figure out Waynette at that time. I wasn't taught about female ways. I wasn't taught about don't be in a relationship. I wasn't taught about sex stuff. I wasn't taught about how to communicate. I wasn't taught about, about Christ, or I wasn't taught about programs. I wasn't, my mom was my main key to talk to me about this stuff. I was getting mixed message from all over the place, from my own nation members, my parent, going to church and all that, all these stuff where I finally just couldn't do it anymore. And I just, I'm just gonna go to the bottle. And when I drink, it's to numb everybody out. I didn't want to listen. I didn't want to hear. I just didn't want to, fight anymore. Just go drink and just the hell with it. Then that's how I lived. I battled with alcoholism for too long, for 33 years, but I did it once. I did sober up for 15 months, but without a sponsor, without the big book, and without, any other steps that's been taught to me today. But that didn't work. Because I fell back to victim, my body wanted to drink some more because of all the stress I'm going through. People tell me about their problems. It's because I was sober, and I didn't even know how to talk to them. I didn't know how to help them. And I just let my own in-law families to just, I just let it all in. And I don't know, I just went back to drinking. And from that 15 months, I just drank for about almost 6 years, I think it was. And finally, when I drank that amount of time, I noticed I felt depression. I felt this depression. I felt anxiety. I felt fear. I felt all this felt like my heart was gonna stop, but it wasn't even my heart. It was the way I was thinking. And so, anyways, I finally went on a camping trip with my kids. They invited me to come, and I went out, and I said, "Sure, I'll come." So I went out to the mountains in Banff and back in 2021. And that's where something happened to me in the mountains. And we were camped there. And then my son-in-law, my daughter, they brought in a bottle. It looked like whiskey. And there was like an 8-pack of Budweiser. And I sat there and I was just like but not only a week in my sober. And I thought I'd go out there just to get away from, nonsense. But when I went out there with them, I seen that and I thought, oh, I told my daughter, I said, just, give me a beer. I need a beer. And then she looked at it and she goes, oh, Mom. I said, no, just give me a beer. So I grabbed and I drank it. And then I started drinking with them. But I felt this guiltiness. The next morning when I woke up, I felt guilty. I felt shame. Like, geez, I was doing wow. Like, what's going on here? So I was in my camp and I looked up. It was early in the morning. I said, God, forgive me for drinking again. God, help me. I'm really sick. I don't know how to get rid of the alcohol. And I don't want to die. So I closed my eyes for a few seconds and I'm not kidding. I heard like it was like a wind. It was like a wind that was coming over, at the top of the trees. Like when you hear the wind go over the top of the trees. And I looked, I was like laying there and I just felt this tremendous warmth come down in me and I closed my eyes and after that I felt something in me and I left it and I fell back asleep and I woke up. I don't know. It took me time. So I felt like just moving forward. So I did. And that September 6th, when I was touched by, when I asked God, and I was, when I got home after the camp, I felt like something kind of like lifted like off my shoulders. That's how it felt, like something lifted off my shoulders. My, like I don't know how to explain it, but it was something that touched me. And from that day, I just think usually when I close my eyes and I pray, I say, Father, thank you. And you know who I am. I've been sick for too long. And I couldn't understand why I was the way I am. And I don't take full responsible and ownership for the things that I've caused and harm to my family, to my ex-husband, my kids, my friends said terrible things. It's because I was full of anger, full of guilt. So today, I'm so grateful for this program. I'm so grateful for this podcast and the one that really helped me, that asked me when I was going to more meetings. 2016 was when I started to hit the meetings, but I was in and out of the programs 2016 because I didn't understand. I didn't get the literatures. I couldn't understand what these people are talking about, their sickness, their illnesses. I still was like, I can't cover it because my brain at that time was trying to heal. And finally, I just, just in and out, I was still drinking. There's this guy, I was explaining my story in a room in Vulcan. And I sat there in the meeting in Vulcan explained, because after the 30 years of my relationship with my son's father, I separated from him because I wanted to move forward. I wanted to change. I wanted to get better. I couldn't stand living the way he lived and the way our relationship wasn't working. I had to move forward, and I told him, but somewhere in there between, something happened with him, meaning like he moved on. I found out on, media that he was already talking to another woman, and that really devastated me. It really kicked my ass, meaning like when I found out that he was seeing another woman talking with another woman on chat, I had I had to like I didn't know. I didn't know what that was. I had to go to my oldest granddaughter, that's whom stays with me right now. And I told her, what's this? What is this about? And she's like, Mom, they're having a thing. And I'm like, thing? What does having a thing mean? And she said they're talking with each other, like want this and that. And I said, okay, well, whatever. But it hit me, and I didn't know how to handle it. And when he came home from work, I went up to him and oh no, it was, oh my gosh, sometimes what I'm saying, my brains kind of gets all over the place. Um, I just confronted him and I told him, you know what, get out, get out of my life. I don't even want to be with you. I don't even want to marry you. I don't even want to look at your face. I don't want to, just get out. So I kicked him out and he left. He didn't argue. He didn't, hit me or anything like that, like he usually does. When I say something, he'll hit me, but he just grabbed his keys and he left, and I let him go. And 2 months later, after that split, I really felt, this time I felt like death crept through my body, meaning I just lost somebody that I was with for 30 years. Like, how the hell? I thought I would be with this guy for the rest of my life. My kid's father. So I just let it go. But the fact was that I went out 2 months after the split. I couldn't do it. I was lonely. I was missing somebody that I thought I loved. I thought that I'll be with for the rest of my life, even though he did what he did to me. I just went out on the streets. I started hanging out on the streets. I started going online dating, talking to other men. Online dating got me into trouble. I did what I did. Basically, I gave up. I just started giving my life to these people. But and I was doing all that. I was just suffering really bad. Like I was just like going nuts. I didn't care. I didn't care what I did to myself. I really didn't care. So I did what I did. And that's when 2016 came, and that's what hit me. And I just, something, like I said, it really changed me. And now, today, I can say that, I have my sponsor, and my sponsor is the one that helped me understand the big book, because I came home one day, I went out again, I was drinking, and my stepsister-in-law, she said, oh, there's somebody here. And I said, oh my gosh, I think that's my son's sponsor. And I was half cut still, my hair was all messy. So I just got off and I said, well, I'm just gonna get off, I'm just gonna go straight to my room. But here he came outside, and why not? And I was kind of like, oh my gosh. I was just like, oh my gosh. He's like, I don't remember exact words because I'm half drunk. He said something about, how are you? Just get some sleep or whatever. And I said, okay. I didn't even want to look at him in the face. I didn't even want to look at, so I said, okay. And so I went inside, and I was right out when I got in. I didn't even want to look at my son either, because I felt so guilty to come home, you know, disgusted and, feeling like really bad. But a month later, when I went to AA in Balkan, that's when I opened up and I said a message about what had happened. And because I was in another second relationship after my 30-year relationship, this boy met me. We met in Calgary, and this boy that I met, he was way younger than me. And he was the one that, we chumped together for about a year and a half, but that year and a half cut short. He died from an attic. They found him in a back alley. And then that even made it even worse. I went back out on the streets, and again, that was terrible. And again, I just lived like that. So 3 months after for 3 months after I did it. But after that, that's when I say in the mountains, a sponsor. I wanted to get a sponsor, but I didn't know how. I was shy. I was nervous. I'm scared. I thought, if I get a sponsor, I thought they're gonna like tell me how to live my life, what to do, and stuff like that. Because of course my ego was coming in. But then my sponsor, the sponsor that came up to me and said, "When did you get sponsored yet?" And I'd be like, no. About a week later, I seen him again. "When did you get a sponsor?" And I said, "No." Then he was kind of, oh, Waynette. Then he's like, "Well, how about this? Why don't I be your temporary sponsor?" And I looked at him quickly and I put my head down. I was like, "Okay." I didn't even hesitate to make excuse. I said, "Sure, okay." And ever since he's been my sponsor, he's the guy that comes to my house working with me, went out of his way to come to my house and read the book with me to help me under that, because I told him 15 minutes of my time about my illness, and I gave him all to my message, and we sat in the kitchen reading a book together. But I told him that I'm like sensitive easily, and helped me understand the book. But that sponsor, oh my gosh, I'm so blessed to have a sponsor like that, would go way out of his way from Vulcan to Sixiga to come help me read that book. Took all his time. But he always tells me, remember, I'm not God, but he's the messenger for me, my brain at that time. I just sit there quietly. He would read me the book, help me understand. But for me, the type of woman I am is I have a hard time understanding the paragraphs in the big book. I'm not good at explaining the big book, but I had to tell him, my brain doesn't comprehend what the big book's talking about, the 12 and 12. So I have to go to my son, Austin, and tell Austin, what does this paragraph mean? I don't understand. I used to freak out, and I used to get mad at my spouse. I don't understand what this means. Help me. I'll be crying. I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna throw this big book away because I don't understand. So when I finally, he said, okay. So he would call me or he'll come by, and then I'd go to my son. And finally, I had to, in order for me this to work, I had to read it, keep reading it and read and start pen and paper, no matter a dictionary, go online, like Google. And, for my brain, it's because my brain, I think it's a learning disability. Finally, I found out I have a learning disability. That's why I couldn't comprehend what anybody talks. If you ask me a question, I have to be like, really sit there for a minute to like, oh, I don't know. I don't know what that means. But today, I just want to say I'm grateful. I may not speak the 12 steps 100% like these big book, I call big book thumpers, but I can explain it through strength, hope, and experience on my part. And because before it was worse, I couldn't even speak. I couldn't even make sense. Sometimes I was in fear. I may not be understood. I was in fear that somebody's gonna find the real Waynette. Oh, she, that's how she was. Oh, she's really ill, and blah blah. I was in fear of that stuff. I was in fear. I was covering up with a wall in me, and I was so scared of what they're gonna find about me. And just talking on this right now, I was nervous. I was telling Bill I'm kind of nervous, but I had to pray. I said, Father, speak through me, because I don't know sometimes. And I'm hoping that I'm a help to others by telling the real story of my experience. And I do cry because, it's still a healing process for me. It's could probably take me another long time to really like get on my feet and really work the program, which I am now. Like now I'm really like just doing the work at home. My son, my kids, oh, Mom, your bed's is full of papers and books, your living room, your kitchen. I have to push my books off to the side. Like just reading and reading and reading, writing, and it's helping me, my vocabulary, and, it's helping me. But, the old me, I couldn't even understand. I couldn't read. Today, because of this program, it has helped me get on my feet one day at a time. I just live it one day at a time, let God let go, and I just take it easy. When God says, He's in control, not me. I'm not in control. I just allow Him to allow Him to take care of me. And I'm so grateful for my son, Austin. I seen him. He was very sick too. I thought I was going to lose my boy. He's a very sick man, just like Mom. I saved him through inviting him to Alcoholics Anonymous program down in our reserve and SOAR Rider group. And I asked him, just come. And we just grew together. My son was very sick. I almost lost him at birth. And today I see him today. I'm very proud of him because God is working through him. That is his son, not me. And I'm very grateful. He brings me around and helps me too. So we work together. We read the book together. If I don't understand, he'll help me analogy or metaphor. So today, I am just grateful to be here. And thank you for Bill's daughter. I had to have a female to sit in the room with me. I told her I was nervous to speak online, and very grateful for her dad and her. Other than that, thanks for listening.
Okay, Waynette. Beautiful. Just keep your mic on and your screen on. I was wondering where Lucy was. I'm like, she's up next. Where is she? Giving support. That's beautiful. Waynette, that was amazing. I didn't know so much of your story, and that was, a snippet of it. And, to hear a lot of like the early goings on in your life and some of the abuse that you've been through and things like that, and to see that you sit here and speak of that truth and do it with courage and strength, and it's a beautiful thing. And to just see your eyes wide open and your heart wide open, and you did say it. Yeah, you do cry a little bit, but it is part of the journey. It's part of healing, right? God gave us the tears to cry to help us heal, and God gave us the voice to speak to help us heal, and you're doing all the things. So it's an honor getting to know you as I have over the last number of years, and to watch you grow has been a beautiful thing. And thank you to your sponsor who has dedicated his time to traveling that far out to your guys' neck of the woods to carry that message and to help individual people with no reward or nothing back other than to see people recover and carry the message themselves. And that's kind of how we do this, right? Um, what what have been some of the hardest parts of your recovery?
I'm sorry. Like, what do you mean by that?
Let me re-articulate that. What parts of your recovery journey have been the most difficult? Would it be learning how to open up to your sponsor and like say words? Or maybe was it doing some of the writing and looking at like some of the truth, or sharing in the meeting or something? What's been the hardest parts to break through?
It would be all the above, but the most hardest part would be my step 4.
Your fourth step, hey? What was hard about it?
I was in fear of letting him know what happened to me or what I've done. there was some deeper stuff in step 4 that I told him about. And yeah, it was in step 4. There's way deeper ones.
Did you think that he was going to judge you, or were you worried about just being embarrassed?
Embarrassed.
And so you knew he wasn't going to judge you.
The the first time, the first time, but the second time, there's something there, because the reason why I was like that is because I was already told in day school that you will never amount to anything. You're you're never gonna be on. You're a liar. You're full of lies, and I just don't say anything. So I thought maybe, because the way us Blackfoot people, that we think that well, I don't know what you call, we call white people, come into our nation and they think they can change our lives and think they can uh take take ownership of us, because we lived in a Blackfoot way where we were taught to be quiet, don't say it, be still. But it was all in my head.
Mm. And so you built a really good relationship with your sponsor, probably one of the best relationships in your life.
Yes,
And he's helped you build a true relationship with yourself, I'm guessing.
yes,
And through a true relationship with yourself, you built a great relationship with your God.
yes,
And it's God that really creator or whatever higher power. That's what keeps us sober, really, isn't it?
yes.
And so anyone on the line who maybe doesn't understand the 12 steps, and this isn't a 12 step this is not a 12-step event. But people get sober however they get sober, and so happens that Waynette went through the 12 steps, and the fourth and fifth step of a 12-step program, they're very difficult steps, but they're very freeing steps. It's where you look at your whole life and you look at resentments and fear and relationship conduct, and a sponsor guides you through one at a time, little by little. And then the person talks about things and a lot gets revealed. And really, what that helps you do is it helps clear the channel within us so that the creator can like work better with us, because we're not blocked off by all the negativity within ourselves. So it clears this channel. And so as we kind of remove the things that aren't really us, so Waynette removed a lot of things that were blocking her so that she could be this authentic person today, as she described, hiding and not saying her truth and not speaking for herself. Like, she can do all those things today because of guidance and the work that she's done, and rely on her God. And when we rely on this other power, it somehow keeps us sober and it keeps us on a good path. And the world doesn't revolve around us and all of our problems as much anymore. It revolves around on how can I help somebody else. And that's why Waynette and Austin and Michael and many other people, they live a life of service, right? And trying to help other people. And so that's part of the solution to this as well. Does anyone have any questions for Waynette or comments?
Hi, I'm Zena, and I am.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. I'll make this quick. Waynette, it's so good to see you. We talked a little earlier. There was no nervousness today. You were so genuine, so authentic, so transparent. You're a natural. And I mean, I think clearly you have found a purpose. And that purpose is as it is today. You're such a witness. You've gone through so much. And at the same time, there's so much that you have accomplished in such a very short time. I had to look at your bio a couple of times. I thought I must have the numbers wrong, So yeah, you're such a blessing. And all I have to say is I know that what has got you through all of this is God. We talked about the Holy Spirit. And I've come to know too that those of us that cry quickly, I've been told, are those of us who are that much closer to God. And you're certainly a witness to that. So I love you. I'm glad that I came and met you through our Bible study on Saturdays. You look great. You do. I have daughters that are older than you, so you're young. God bless you, Waynette. Thanks so much for sharing. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rudy. Zena?
Thank you. My name is Zena, and I am a recovering alcoholic. And I just love your share. The part that I relate most is your vulnerability and the feelings you had as you were talking. I felt connected with you. Sharing that raw emotion gives me, I have been in recovery for quite a while, but sometimes I get not feeling that I can share that vulnerability with somebody. And as they were alluding to before, when I came into program, having a man sponsor was easier for me because I did not trust women. As I recovered, as more time went by, I found myself having a woman sponsor, and she and I have been since 2005 been building so I could trust women again. I needed to feel okay about being a woman and whatever happened to me. I can hear your pain because I went through it myself. I'm giving you a big hug here, okay? Keep it up. And thanks for sharing that with me today, because you made me feel better just by sharing your honesty and vulnerability. Thank you.
Thank you, Zena.
Can I just share real quick, Bill? Yeah, Waynette, that was really nice to hear your share there. But I just want to mention when Waynette was telling that story about how I was working with Austin, and she came home and was pretty liquored. And I was leaving. We were done, Austin and I, and I just said to Waynette, I don't think I even said anything. We just stopped and talked for a minute. I said, hi, Waynette. And she said, Michael, AA doesn't work for me.
Yeah, that's right.
Remember that? And I said, Waynette, you've never given AA a try. And then we started to go to meetings. Austin and I and Waynette would join us. And but Waynette really freaking wanted this. Like, she said that she struggled to understand some stuff sometimes. She was always in that book, always reading that book, and Austin was always helping her. She did this. She made this happen, and relying on God, but she put the work in, and I'm just so proud of her. God bless.
Hi. Thank you, Michael. Okay. If anyone else has a comment or question for Waynette, or if Shannon, you figured out your phone, you're more than welcome to come back on and ask.
Hi, thank you. That was a beautiful, beautiful contribution. I'm really proud of you. My question is for Austin. And this is why. I come from a town of 2,000 for the last 2,000 years. My community is all related, okay? Doesn't mean incestually, but everybody knows everybody. They made a movie about my town called The Boys of St. Vincent, which only represents about 20% of the actual victims, resulting in generational abuse throughout my entire town. My question for you is, because you being so young from a reserve, which is limited in numbers and very similar to where I come from, a lot of my people aren't getting help due to fear of exposing the brother, the uncle, the neighbor, the father, the babysitters, and family friends. So my question for you is, how do we get our youth and existing members to get the healing they need and removing the fear of exposure and being ostracized and shunned? That's my question for you.
Okay. Austin, can you make your way to where your mom is and then give you a chance to respond to that? And while you're on your way there, I will respond to that. Why not just stay put with Austin? Um, I'm going to give you my take while Austin gets settled. That's a great question and a heavy statement. And so my company, Billwardlife, I go to First Nations communities. I work in community. I try to work autonomously, not connected to the health department, not connected to the chief and council, although I have to be to some degree. But I try to, on my pitch, on my sales pitch, I'm like, I need to be autonomous. That means I'm governed through creator and I work with people individually, and I need them to not see me coming in and out of the band office and the health center, and I need to build a beautiful trust on my own accord. And so I do that. And then I hear the things that I hear, and I'm blown away at some of the stories that I hear. And I would say a lot of the blocks to people really getting help is the guilt and the shame of what they've been through, and then their fear of outing somebody else and how to get through that. You know, I'm going to read you something here that I just saw on my Facebook today. And this was written by somebody I know. The most kind and real as F people and the brave and resilient are in recovery. I pray that we all get there someday as First Nations people, even chief and councils. LOL, a lot would change. Chief and councils. It needs to start with chief and councils. When I go into community, I'm working them from, so we have a hierarchy system based in colonial ways, and that's how chief and councils are set up. It's very similar to our Canadian government. But we think that we're running it ourselves, but we're running it with many people that are intergenerationally hurt over years of systematic abuse in the residential schools. So a lot of chiefs and councils are not well. And so we're, guys like me, are trying to work our way up the chain to get the chief and councils to try to get them to take responsibility for their own healing. But because there's so much pride and ego with chief and councils, they're not doing it. And they won't do it because of the spiritual malady of which they live in. So it's very difficult. So trying to like break the ice with some chief and councils to get well and follow a path like what we do in recovery. Look at yourself, look at your pride, look at your ego, look at your pain, and acknowledge things that you don't want to acknowledge, just like Waynette had talked about, like Austin has done and I have done and we do. And in there lies humility, but in there lies a lot of humiliation. It's very humiliating to acknowledge parts of yourself that you don't like and to undo belief systems that you've lived in and stories that you've told yourself your whole life. And so getting chief and council to buy into that, because it has to start from the top and trickle into the administration and then trickle into the people. But right now we're working backwards. So, you know, there's a lot of frontline people at the bottom tiers or in the administration tiers. They're trying to do this, but it's very difficult because you're in political a desert and you're in intergenerational trauma with other people within the administration, and everyone's worried about their job, everyone's worried about this and that. So it's difficult to make real change because you can't change if you're living in a fear. You can only change if you're living in love. This is why we do these things. That's why Waynette and Austin and Michael, myself, and many other people are making the changes we are, because we're doing it for the betterment of people, and we don't really care who comes at us because you can't combat love. But most people don't live there really, especially chief and councils, although they can say whatever they want on the platforms. And I'm not saying they don't care. You don't know what you don't know, and you can't see selfish and self-centeredness from a position of selfish and self-centeredness, and it's basically just wounds. So that's my little take on that, and I have many more takes on that, but it's not my show really today. So Austin, what do you say about what Shannon said?
Hey, Shannon. Yeah, I forgot to mention my age, but I'm 28 years old. I'll be 29 pretty soon. With my intake on my personal view of this, like Michael, I'm just gonna reiterate what Michael said earlier. If you don't know AA, or if you haven't done it, well, you don't know. So you honestly, I'm coming from an addict. A lot of people suffer from on our nations, whether it's an addict or alcohol, or not an addict, sorry, alcoholic, but people come from addicts or any other addictions. And it's really based on what Bill was saying, the spirituality. No unique, there's no not such thing as a unique person. Everyone has this. Um, we don't find out until we do get some work. Like I think I don't really like bringing AA as an opinion on outside of these things, but because of this book that is a design for living that we have, it's a really powerful book. This shit will change a person's life. And this big book that we talk about, it's not just about alcoholism itself. It's about these defects that we don't understand of who we really are deep inside. So if you really want to really target a nation, it has to start with somebody that knows and has experience and that's willing to do the work. And it takes freaking hard work, man. It does. And no one is accountable for this. No one doesn't take their time and effort to get out there and to show others that this is how it's done. If you want to get better, this is how we do it. And I'm talking about people that have been through this experience of addiction or any sort of addiction. And I think it starts with the person that knows and has been through it and knows what they're doing about it, about the solution. So you could have these programs, like you can have maybe like we have a men's warrior program. It's all culture based, and that could work, but if it's a real deal alcoholic and addict, it's very, very, very limited, for my opinion. They do go back out. I've seen it, but for some reason, when we come into the AA rooms, it's like it changes. So yeah, it's really, really limited to what people go through. I think it's really best that we, like Bill really, really said it there. So it's affecting our chief and council. It's affecting businesses. They don't understand it. And just to end off with this, with your answer, um, I spoke to six of health services, and I don't mean to put them in a shitty way, but I've told them that this is not a easy illness or disease we talk about. This is something that, we talk about people dying left and right. And we say, oh, they're dying, but we don't do nothing about it. I think it's best if you know and if you have the experience and if you have that opportunity, it's best to, do something, get out there, take these people. For example, I'm taking my buddy, man, like that's how much I care, just this one person at a time, one community and all this one family at a time. Doesn't doesn't take much when you really, really want to show somebody that love. It starts with you and it can build that community. So really it starts with us and the people that have it, it starts there. So I'm hoping that, they get the message. And that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Beautifully said, bro.
Thank you.
Okay. So, with no further ado, Waynette, we want to thank you for your time and your story and all the things that you brought to the table today. It was a beautiful share, probably the most amazing share I've ever heard you do. And the healing journey is in good shape with you. So I want to thank you for joining us. If you could mute your mic and your camera, we will get our next speaker into place, which will be my daughter, Lucy.
Thank you.
So thank you, Annette. So Lucy is my little 23-year-old middle daughter. She struggled over the years with substance abuse. I know when she was younger, cough syrup, um, cough medicine, and other drugs that I don't know very well. And I know a while back she had she had done a recovery program and got fairly healthy, actually, really healthy. And she decided to go to school, and she was in Lethbridge, and school became overwhelming, and she went out and used fentanyl. And I got a message in the middle of the night that said, "Dad, you got to get me out of here. I'm gonna die." And I didn't see the message until the morning. And then I called her in the morning, and within a day, we had got her out of there and back to home. And you know, and this is one thing I've seen about recovery. People get sober in their first year, maybe 6 months sober, 8 months sober, and they want to go back to school and change, get into this career. And like, I'm always like, no, chill, man, chill. You know, untreated alcoholism loves you overwhelming yourself. Overwhelming yourself will take you right back out. And that's what happened with Lucy. And then another journey of her recovery began, right? She decided to do whatever she was gonna do, and started smoking weed and drinking a bit and doing some of the things that that take us out. She ended up I don't want to tell her whole story, but I'll let her tell it. But anyway, she's just doing amazing. I fucking love my daughter, excuse my language. I've done very well over 3 sessions, and I haven't said one F-bomb, so it was bound to happen. I'm really sorry, Acfn. But anyway, without further ado, Lucy, are you there?
I am.
Yay. So I was going to tell your whole story, but I better let you tell it. So anyway, thank you, Lucy. And like I said, 20 minutes-ish. If it goes over half an hour, whatever, or under, that's fine. But I love you, and let's hear what you got to say.
Okay. Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you for having me be a part of this. It's quite the honor. So I guess I'll start at the very beginning. I was raised very privileged by my father, obviously, and my mom. Um, my dad was an alcoholic addict, but he was sober off of alcohol. He was, his defects of character were running rampant. And when I say that, I mean like his selfishness, his dishonesty, his anger, the rage, actually. It was not just anger, it was rage. Um, and so I had seen that growing up, and my mom, she had suffered from her own experiences of life, and they didn't grow up in an area where they could learn anything different than what they knew. And so I was raised to act out in my defects. I was raised to be selfish. I was raised to be dishonest, and not dishonest in the way that I'm a liar, dishonest in the way that like I can rationalize and justify anything to suit what it is I'm trying to get or do or say it's not a problem, but it is a problem, and that is dishonesty. And so then when my dad, or I guess, so I was living a really good life, a really beautiful life, a life filled with fear and anxiety from the tiptoeing around my father. And once he burnt everything to the ground, he left, and we had lost everything. We lost everything. And that was a really weird experience because finding out my parents split up, I knew that they weren't good together and I knew that it was toxic, but that's what I knew. I didn't realize that, like, the shock when you find out Santa's not real is like, what? What? And that was like finding out my parents weren't right for each other at the time. I was like, I don't know how to say it without swearing, but I'll do my best. Um, it was just a big mind-blowing experience. And so then they split up, and I didn't take it very well. But then we moved, my dad left, and I guess this is at the point in his story where he was getting sober and going through his own recovery journey through the 12 steps and all that. And I was very angry. Like, I was raised watching my father be so unbelievably angry, and I took that in. I really looked up to my dad. No matter how scared I was of him, like, I respected him. And so I respected the way he got what he wanted when he wanted it. And I wanted that. And so I took that as like one of my own characteristics. And I started acting out in that. But it just made me more sick, like spiritually and mentally sick. And so I'm living with my mom and my sister. I have two sisters, but my older one wasn't here. She was with her boyfriend. I'm living with my younger sister and my mom. And I was so mad. My mom's struggling from losing everything, and she's super depressed, and she stays in a room where she doesn't come home from work for quite some time, and the dinners were being made less and less. And I know it's hard for my mom to hear about this, but it's what happened. And so I started getting unbelievably angry. And I'm like, what the fuck? Pardon my language. And I grew up Catholic. And so the one thing that I didn't understand growing up Catholic is like, yeah, I understood the 12 commandments. I understood all the stuff they taught me, but it essentially gave me a theory of God. Like, I didn't have any steps on how to work through the experiences I was going through. I just knew thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. And I'm like, well, I'm 12. I'm not trying to pick up my neighbor's wife. But I I was struggling because I'm going through this, like, essentially it was like a psychosis with my spirituality. And I've heard of it before, like a spiritual psychosis or something. I was definitely going through that at like 13 years old, and I'm having panic attacks because the Bible tells me I'm going to go to hell. And I'm like, well, I don't want to go to hell, but I didn't know what to do about it. So then one day I realized, I'm like, God wouldn't do this to a little girl. Like, this is absolutely messed up. And so I decided I didn't believe in anything because what's in front of me is what's happening. And there's no hope for something good around the corner when everything just goes bad. So then I'm super angry. And I started running my life on my defects of character. So my selfishness, my self-centeredness, everything and anything. And it was being taken out on my mom and my sister. And I call both of them every single name in the book. I would get up in their faces. I'd corral them in their rooms. And I was quite emotionally abusive towards them, a lot like how my father was. It pretty much the same. And I hated my dad. But then I ended up finding out when I was 15 that we lost everything, not because of the guy who my dad said we lost everything to. It was because my dad started doing his drug of choice at the time. And that I lost my mind. I lost my mind. Because in my head, my selfish way of thinking, I was like, oh, damn, this was really all preventable. Preventable. You get the point. And I just couldn't conceptualize my father doing that to his family. I'm like, what a selfish man. And so that made me so like explosively angry, and I'd get blackout angry, and I couldn't remember. And so I would ask my mom, I beg her, because I knew I was angry. I beg her for anger management or counseling or whatever I knew of to be able to deal with this. But my mom and my dad weren't in a place where they could help me at the time. My mom did her best and she got me like the free counseling, but I was very combative with my counselor and I didn't like the way that I was running the show, and so my counselor didn't fit into the script. And so I was like kicking her to the curb. Um, and I didn't need to talk about my issues. I needed a solution on how to get through it now. Like, and my counselor wasn't giving me any of that. It was just me talking and then her saying, "That makes sense. I see why you are the way you are." And it's like, how does that help me? I know I am the way I am, why I am. So then I started smoking weed. And the second I started smoking pot, I started using it to calm my anger. Like the second it happened. And so I was using my defects of character to uh, calm whatever it was that I was going through at the time. But then once I started smoking pot, I didn't need to fucking yell at my mom all the time. I didn't need to go and hit my sister. Yeah, I could just smoke. And so then that started, but then that only lasted for so long until it started bleeding out again. And it never really even worked because I was still hitting my sister and I was still screaming at my mom. So my mom took me to the doctors to get medication. And she's like, my daughter needs like serious help. She can't calm down when this shit happens. I'm sorry, I'm swearing. I swear when I'm nervous and I'm Bill's kid, so forgive me. So I go to the doctors and she gives me this wonderful little blue pill that I take whenever I'm feeling like a 10 out of 10 anger fit, and it will calm me down. And so I started taking that at 15 years old. And I was allowed because I was prescribed it. And the effects produced had me hooked immediately. So I started smoking weed on that prescription, and it was like the hug I needed for so long from I don't know who. And so then at that time, my dad was in the program and he starts calling me an alcoholic addict without a sip of liquor. This is right before I started taking that medication. And I'm like, I grew up raised by defects, so of course I'm going to act out in all these defects of character that they talk about in the 12 steps. And so I'm going to look like an addict because I was raised like that. But I didn't see that because I just seen, this is how you made me. Like, what is going on? And so, and it would drive me nuts when he'd tell me that because I'm like, who are you to talk to me like that? So anyways, we didn't have that great of a relationship. We didn't really see each other. There was a lot of selfishness and self-centeredness coming from both sides of the street at that point. And then when I turned 18, I was when I was younger, I was very youthful. I'm still quite youthful. Like I am young and youthful. But I mean like when I was 18, I wasn't an adult. I was not an adult. I shouldn't have been allowed to do all this adult shit with all these adult consequences because I was still just a little broken kid on the inside. So I go out with one of my buddies to a Snoop Dogg concert and I ended up getting drugged and I blacked out for I think it was like 10 hours, 9 hours or something. And when I woke up, I was I was laying in this bed and I didn't know where I was with two men standing above me and I was completely I had no clothes on, and I'm not like that. I'm not like that at all. And I didn't know what to do. And I had a terrible feeling in my gut. And what my instinct told me was, you be very nice to these people and you do what they say until you get outside. And so I asked them where I was, and they said, you're downtown Calgary. I was actually right outside Boudoir Rouge in that apartment complex. And they told me they were going to grab their van and they were going to drive me home. And I was so scared. So I just grabbed my clothes, I put them on, grab all my things, and we walked down the scariest staircase I've ever seen. And when we get to the lobby, there's a police officer waiting right before, like, where you can't get in, where it's locked. And we go out there, and she says, are you Lucy Ward? And I had never been so fucking happy to be me than that day, because she grabbed my hand, they arrested the two men, and I was this close to being sex trafficked. And it turns out that they had taken my last cell phone location and they pinged it to the apartment. And then they had the apartment surrounded for about 2 hours before I had come out, waiting for me. And that was really scary. So I ended up getting a prescription, another prescription, same shit, different piles. The other prescription that I was already using, just like up with a different name. And so I started using that. I just started numbing anything I could feel, because I woke up the next day after all that happened and I was still me. Like, I was like, where's all this trauma? Like, this trauma, where is this supposed to come from? The PTSD that they're telling me I'm gonna have. I'm like, I'm still me today, not realizing how cunning and baffling that it happened, like how it happened. So then my defects started running rampant. And I was taking my prescriptions because I was allowed to take my prescriptions. And then my mom would ask me, why are you so dull and forgetting everything and you're not who you are? And I'm like, I don't know. Can't tell you. So then I'd over abuse it. And because my dad had called me an addict alcoholic, I'd stop for a week and then be like, now I can do it again because I'm not an alcoholic addict. I can control it because I'm smart. And so then I started drinking cough syrup because my older sister had given me lean once, and I fell in love with lean. And so then I couldn't afford lean because I was a broke little 18-year-old. So I started drinking the cough syrup with the DXM stuff in it, and I get really high. But then I accidentally almost overdosed on that. It was a scary experience. But then I met my ex, and he was a dealer, and I went for someone who I didn't think would be like my father. Turns out he was everything that my father was and worse. And he introduced me to Xanax. And the second I had this Xanax, it wasn't pure. He was getting off the streets, and no matter what people say, like, oh, my shit's pure, it's not. From my experience, I can 95% with confidence say that this had fentanyl in the Xanax. And I started doing it all the time. About 8 months into our relationship. I actually can't even really remember the timeline, but it doesn't matter. And so I would, he's supplying me the Xanax, and I'm taking it. I'm taking so much of it, I forget that I had just taken the last that I had had, and I'm looking for my drugs again. Because I'm like, where'd it go? I'm like, it was right here. He must have taken it. But no, it was me. It was always me who had taken it. And then I'd stop for about a week because I could control it. And then I'd be absolutely miserable to be around because I was going through withdrawals. And then I eventually had a spiritual experience through my spiritual experience was actually really crazy because I had been an atheist for that whole time since I was like 14, 13. And I found Creator. And so I started following this path of Creator. And I was unsure if I was an addict or not because was I just raised like this? Could I fix myself? And then I could drink like everyone else. I could smoke like everyone else. I could do a little bit of drugs here and there. But that wasn't the case. Like Creator had me be like this so that I could learn the things I needed to learn. So I got sober for the first time for about 5 months. And then the day that I got 12 stepped, because that's what I went through, I ended up smoking weed. And then I got sober on and off. I can't really remember the timeline. But then this time that my dad was talking about, I had gotten like actually a really good solid foundation on my sobriety. And having my father as my father, because I was inspired by him even though I didn't like him, I wanted to be the level of recovery he had. And so I'm really good at talking the talk, but not walking the walk because I know what you want to hear from me because I can hear it through him. Like I'm inspired by what he says, and so is everyone else. And that, yeah. So it's big shoes to fill at the time. Or so I thought. And so I decided I want to go to school in Lethbridge, of all places. Very smart on my part. And I go out there and I do my first semester, and it was really good. And then I come home for Christmas, and I had gotten an email that my counselor had sent me from the time of the incident, like of the sex trafficking miss, to redo my victim's impact report. And this is like 2 years after it had all happened, and I had pushed it all down and stuff. And that rocked me because after the incident, I had gotten paranoid. I thought people were following me. I re- I hid. I hid inside of myself. I was very scared. Um, so then the email came and I read my report, which was not fucking smart of me. So I re-traumatized myself with stuff I actually didn't even know had happened that I couldn't remember because I was still super high the morning I had woken up. Um, so then in January, I was so unbelievably depressed, and I was in my second semester, and I was trying to fill my prescription from 2 years ago to get the drugs that I had been prescribed before. I couldn't. I've asked all my friends that I had in Lethbridge if they knew any Xanax dealers. They didn't because it's Lethbridge. You don't, it's a big city drug. And so then one night, I have a cat, okay? And I love this cat. Creator gave me this cat. And anyone who knows me knows I love my cat. And so I said goodbye to my little kitty, my handsome boy, Doug. And I went driving around Lethbridge. And I seen these two homeless guys outside the bank in downtown Lethbridge. And I pulled over and I asked them if they knew anyone that sold Xanax. And they said, we only have down around here. And I didn't know what down was at the time. And so they're like, can we get in your car? And I was like, okay. So they get in my car, and they actually turned out to be really beautiful people. As much as it was a weird situation, but they were beautiful people. Like I wasn't in any danger. So I had these two homeless people in my car for about 4 hours, and we're trying to find someone that sells down. And then we find them. And then they asked me to go to the homeless shelter so that I could drop them off. And they go and grab 2 Narcan kits. And one of the gentlemen was from the blood reserve. And they show me how to inject the Narcan and everything. And they're like, the one thing we tell you is don't do it alone. I was like, okay. I was like, I won't. And then they leave. And then I go and do it alone. And then I started. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be at all. My arms started going numb. My feet started going numb. My heart started racing. And I wasn't doing it to get high. I was done. I was completely over everything I had been through. And I just couldn't see anything else. And so I wasn't trying to get high. I was done. So then it didn't happen the way I thought it was going to happen. I had to call my boss for her to come and get me. It was like 4 a.m. at this point. I went to the hospital. I was fine. And I went home. I went home the next day. And I was so scared that my dad was going to be disappointed in me. Because I care what my dad thinks a lot. And then I was depressed for like the next probably 6 months. Very depressed. Because I couldn't believe what had just happened. It's like I needed to re-traumatize myself to be able to give up and move on from something. I don't know. And so then I started doing Xanax again. And other drugs, other prescription medication, because I was a prescription addict. Never to get better though, only to get worse. And then there was one night where I knew that if I had taken all the pills given to me, I was gonna die. Like I would have died in my best friend's basement while he was in Chilliwack, and because I'm family friends with them and stuff. I was hanging out with his sister, who was very sick at the time. And so then I reached out to my dad and I was like, I need to go to treatment because I knew I was gonna try and end it again. But this time I chose life. I realized that I was living with like creator as a theory. And so I went to treatment, came out of treatment, and I realized for myself that I do suffer from these defects of character, regardless if they were given to me, regardless of who they were given to me by. I suffer from them, and it is a bitch to get out of them. And so then I started smoking weed again right out of treatment. Haha, because I'm that guy. And treatment was August 20th of, forget my years. Last year? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I go into treatment, start smoking again, and my life became unmanageable again because the unmanageability absolutely chases me everywhere I go. Whenever I think I have it and I can control it, and I'm not living in love or being true to what Creator wants me to do, it like the lesson will repeat itself until learned, and I wasn't learning my lesson. So then August 20th came up of the next year, and I had been clean off of any prescription drugs for a year when August 20th came about, but I wasn't clean off of any and all mind-altering substances. So I decided, I was like, this is a sign, if there's ever going to be a sign, to quit all these vices. And it's what I needed. I needed to have that anniversary date and that shame because I was really looking forward to being a year clean. So I needed that shame to push me again to choose that date to be able to restart. So I chose August 20th of just 2024 to quit any and all. And haven't really looked I haven't looked back from it as of right now, but I'm also trying to make sure I'm not falling into that pink cloud of it's better now. I can control my life because I've learned that I cannot control my life regardless of how good it goes. I need to rely on Creator to guide me and be there for me and helped me not be in selfishness and dishonesty and all these defects that I do suffer from. And for me, like I grew up without the culture in my house. My dad says that he didn't want to be Indigenous, but I always had a very strong connection to the Indigenous culture ever since I was little. And my mom, who's white, she would put little artifacts up around the house of like Sitting Bull or something. And I absolutely loved it. I was hypnotized by this stuff. And I was so proud to be Cree. But I didn't know how to get connected. So then seeing my dad go through all this stuff and get connected with the culture through doing the 12 steps, like you can be a part of culture but still not be honest with yourself and not walk with true integrity and honesty. The culture is a beautiful piece when you're healthy to be a piece of it. And so I found that for me, both of these things, the 12 steps and the culture, the 12 steps helped me clear my channel to be the most authentic and honest and connected to my creator for the culture. Then I can be honest in my ceremony. And they just go hand in hand for me. Like I've seen for a lot of other people that weren't connected and are now connected with the culture and the 12 steps. The 12 steps I hated the 12 steps when I first started because they were what changed my dad. And I didn't like who my dad turned out to be because I was at a lower vibrational level. My dad was at a higher one now. Because he wasn't living in anger and resentment and fear and dishonesty, and I was. And so that scale, I'm living down here, he's living up here. And so I didn't like that because it made me uncomfortable. It disturbed my beliefs that I thought he had given me, but it was all a lie. And so once I found that, it attracted me to a higher level. And so, shit, what was I saying? Right. So I'm at this vibration scale and brain fart. Okay, yeah, the vibration scale. My dad's really inspiring me to be who it is I need to be. Oh yeah. Oh, everywhere. I take away the drugs and the alcohol and I still have a problem, right? That's the solution to all my problems. And that's what I really had to learn. Like it didn't matter if I was using the Xanax for whatever reason, because I took away the Xanax and I still had all these issues that I wasn't dealing with, which always led me back to going through my unmanageability in my life again and acting in selfishness and dishonesty and fear and whatever it is. So it's a spiritual malady, like Austin was saying and my dad was saying. That's what I truly suffer from. It's self-pity. It's yeah, it's a spiritual malady. And so it's beautiful for me to have been able to have learned all that I learned through these steps, because without it, I wouldn't have a step-by-step instruction on how to go through my problems and live my life and be a better person and help people the way that I need to help people. So yeah, all my thoughts are escaping me, so I will stop now.
Awesome. Awesome, Lucy. Thank you. That was your first time doing
Yes.
that. Good for you. That worked out good. I'm really happy that you did that, and I learned a whole bunch of things about you that I didn't know.
Hmm.
As a young person, so if anyone has any questions or comments for Lucy, please queue them up. I'm going to start. And as a young person in recovery, what are some of the biggest challenges that you face? You're 23 years old. You've been bouncing around in recovery now for a few years. So, what's the difference between you and other kids your age or other young adults your age, and what are some of the challenges?
Um, I think priorities. Like a lot of the people my age, and I had just gotten into this when I was like 18. So a lot of the people, they're out wanting to go live on their impulses. And I do too, but also part of me knows I need to be doing better. And so finding that path of who do I talk to that's my own age that I can relate to, because everyone else is out drinking and not giving a shit on their consequences to their actions. So that's been a really big struggle for me to navigate, but I've realized like water finds its own level, and so what? I'm friends with a whole bunch of older people. Like I'd way rather be friends on that higher vibrational level than going out and drinking everything, drinking and everything.
Mm. So, along your journey with the deep into reflection on yourself, what have been some of the hardest things to that you've gone through? Um, Maybe like as you've looked at yourself, what are some of the hardest things to shake and where have you made progress?
One of the harder things to shake was accepting that I have a problem. I have a problem with life and running it, and which in return, like I am an addict, and that was a really hard pill to swallow because I didn't know, and I needed to take that label off and just do my thing on my own terms without having anyone call me anything because that pressure, it was crippling for a while. So I needed to accept who I was for myself rather than have someone tell me who I was. So that was a really big one for me.
Right, I could see that. Um, and what kind of things do you do now to like keep your sobriety? What helps you stay on the beam? And I know you're working a good job and you have a lot of passion, you're working with children and you're doing a lot of other really, really great things as a young adult to try to move forward. And what are some of the things that are keeping you on the path today?
So it's a mixture of 12 steps and like recovery work and culture. I haven't been recently, but I do try to go to sweats. That really helps me like release and talk to creator. Um, I have a sponsor. I go through the 12 steps. I talk about recovery, which actually really helps me. As long as I'm not trying to do someone else's inventory, stick to my own side of the street. Um, I smudge every single day and I try to actually twice a day, but having that time to just really put the intention, like I want to have these kind hands. I want to have kind, good thoughts and allow what comes out of my mouth to be good and helpful. And maybe I don't say something I think I want to. Having like those two different times to uh, put intention towards that really helps me slow down my thoughts. I pause, breathe, pray throughout the day. I listen to your podcast. I go to meetings, not as much as I probably should be, but I will be picking that up. And I think it really helps that you're my dad. And so, like, I do. Like, I'm very grateful that I have someone in such strong recovery as my father.
You like your dad today?
Yeah, every second day. I like it when he gives me money.
Oh my God. Anyway, um, does anybody have any questions or comments for Lucy before? But she's not going to go away. She is going to sing a traditional song, and she is a big part of culture, and she really does seek that part of her life out, and it's really beautiful for me to watch. And she had mentioned earlier that I didn't want to be Indigenous, and I didn't. Most of my life I spent running away from it. It wasn't until I got sober and had been working in recovery for a while where I was like, holy, I really want to learn about my culture and about my people. And And it was a big shift in my life. And as I kind of went down that path, sweating, sun dancing, scapular work and whippies and just the whole, like anything I can get my hands on in the culture, I'll try. And Lucy's been like right there behind me, seeking it out too. It's been a beautiful thing and something that we can like share in, which is also really beautiful. Does anyone have any comments or questions for Lucy?
Lucy,
Mama.
question for you.
Yeah.
As far as dating and friendships, I understand you have a lot of older people around you, not meaning older, but like it's still predominantly not a lot of young people in the program. Do you find it challenging in regards to finding healthy friendships and relationships that are your equal in on your same path? Is my question.
Friendships? No, because it's really easy to accept a person for who they are and what they bring to the table. Relationships, I'm still trying to figure that one out. Creator's still teaching me some lessons. Um, yeah. Yeah, relationships is the tricky one. That's a tricky one. That's a good question, Mom. But yeah, no, friendships, I don't, it's really nice because creators providing me with the friends I need. And so that's not me. He's just putting the people in my life that I need to be a part of. But relationships, he's still teaching me lessons.
Good answer. And I can vouch for you on both of those.
Oh my God.
Does anyone else have any comments, questions for Lucy before we put it on her next task? Okay, so Lucy has been working hard at learning a lot of the women aspects of the culture and seeking it out. She's been trying to find her home where she wants to like learn from which teachers. And so she's on the search and she's learned a bunch or some, I wouldn't say a bunch, but she's learned some songs along the way and she's finding some teachings here and there she seeks and the other thing that Lucy's really good at outside of culture and her recovery is she's a really great singer. And so when she sings these cultural songs, it's really a beautiful thing. And so I don't know which song she's going to sing today, but Lucy, whatever you can share about the song that you might have been taught up to the point where you are today, and whatever the song is that you're going to sing, I'm going to give you the floor and it's all yours.
Okay. So the song that I'm going to sing is I haven't been provided with too many teachings on it because I've learned it just through ceremony and stuff. But I know that it is a creator's song, and I know that it spoke to me the second I heard it, and it's just come to me throughout ceremony. Um, yeah, that's all I know as of right now. Creator will provide me with the lessons when I'm supposed to know more. So, okay. I hope I don't get nervous and forget it. Oshemana hey, Oshemana hey, Oshemana hey, Oya hey, Oya te, Wonka tonka hey, Oshemana hey, Oya hey, hey, oh. Oshemana hey, Oshemana hey, Oshemana hey, oya hey ya, oya te, Wonka tonka hey, Oshe mana hey, 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 yo. Oshe mana hey, Oshe mana hey, Oshe mana hey, hey, yo. Oyate, Wonka tonka hey, Oshe mana hey, hey, yo. Oshe mana hey, Oshe mana hey, Oshe mana hey, hey. Oyate, Wonka tonka hey, Oshe mana hey, hey, yo. I may have messed that up. Creator, forgive me.
Sounded pretty good to me.
Okay. Well, thank you, Fudge.
Okay, thank you, Lucy. Thanks for sharing your story and being so vulnerable. And, thanks for having the courage to do it online with some people you don't know for your very first time. So we'll get Lucy to swap out with our final speaker, Mr. Robert Dryneck. So a little bit about Robert that I know. I've known Robert now for probably close to the whole time he's been sober and in recovery. He's uh he's just been he's just been like solid, like steady. He's like the turtle. He's like steady, steady, steady. And I saw him years ago around. Didn't really get to know him too well until the last couple years. And especially this last like 6 or 8 months, we've gotten to know each other much, much better. Spent some time together, driving around, having coffees, talking about life, talking about recovery, and he's told me some pretty wild things about his story. Of course, we don't have time to go through everything with everybody. These are just snippets of our lives and, in a rough way, like what it was like, what happened, and what it's like today. But there's so many more components to our stories than we can share in 20 minutes or half an hour. But, we do our best. And every time we do share a little piece of our story, we heal a little bit. And that's why it's so beautiful to put these on and we're healing and then people are listening and it gives people permission to tell their own story because it's storytelling is what our ancestors did to help each other heal and to pass down knowledge and it's a beautiful way. So without further ado, Mr. Robert Dryneck from Tlichlow lands just west of Yellowknife, Northwest Territories, is sitting in the speaker room getting ready to share part of his story. So, Robert, if you could take it away and, you know, inspire us with your hope. Thank you, my brother.
Thank you, Bill. My life stories begin before my addictions. And my background is I come from a Clinton country, just outside of the Yellowknife, Northwest Territory. The community we call Bechoco, formerly known as Ray Edzo and Fort Ray before. And the population almost 3,000. And my life before alcohol addictions, I was abusive in physical, verbal, sexuals. Any abuse that you name in the book, I was part of it. Mostly bullies in school because I stutter and I was small and skinny. I got picked on a lot. And from there, from kindergarten till about grade 4, 5, I ran away from school a lot, at least about 75% of each year. So my English is not that good, but if you could bear with me, that would be grateful. I'll just continue. My alcoholism started at the age of 12, the summer of 76. My cousin and I, we started drinking. First, we stole the booze off his dad. His dad is a bootlegger. So summer of 76, we started selling booze for him, but we end up stealing a Mickey off him. With that, for next 2 years, we became a closet drinkers. Every weekend, we had a Mickey. We'd go out in the bush, did that. Then summer, winter of 78, when I turned 14, I switched friend. At the same time, the marijuana, it came to a community, and the booze was flowing in. And my community didn't have any access road to Yellowknife until early 60s. So the bootlegger didn't start until about early 70s. In mid 70s, we discovered the bootleggers. So we started stealing off them, robbing them. We do anything to get a booze on our hand. And from there on, from the age of 14, I got into booze, drugs, women, sex, and my life just boom exploded. I became one of the most popular kid on the block. For next 2-3 years, every weekend, every daily, we're bringing weeds and Mickey 26, 40 ounce back to school. We don't bring booze to school to get drunk, but to get high and feel like a man. And we did that. By the time I was 16, in grade 8 level, I got kicked out of school because of my attitude, my behavior, my carelessness. And but still hang around with my friends. At 17, my parents couldn't hack it anymore, raising 7 boys and 3 girls. And at my parents' house at the beginning in mid 60s, we didn't have any electricity or running water. Everything has to be hauled in by hand. And there's a lot of chores. And if one chore is being missed, no firewood, no water, the outhouse is not clean. That was my job. I get shit and get lucky and get beaten a lot for it. With all these angers that I got abused, I just hold on to it. By 14, 15, 16, I just explode and I just went, wow, the black sheep of the community and of the family. And by 17, I wasn't going to school, no work, nothing. I was just staying home, lazy kid. Then my dad said, Robert, bring the chair up. So I put my chair up to him. He says, Robert, you're not going to school. You're not looking for a job. Get the fuck out of my house. Holy smokes. Ooh, it shook me. At 17 years old, I didn't say nothing. You're not allowed to talk back to your parents. I just took my jacket. I went out the door. By the grace of God, walking down Main Street, I ran into the businessman, Dan. Say, Dan, I say, yes, I'm looking for a job. He just raised his hand and said, God, thank you. Okay, first thing in the morning, 6 o'clock, be at my garage. You're going to be a water boy. At that time, we started delivering water house to house. I was the helper. And I did that for about the next 3 years. My alcoholism increased and with drugs and women. One thing I like to mention above all is when I was 14, I was raped by sugar mama. With that, I started using them for their place, for their booze, their party house. And we just went wild and we just went at it. And after working for the water truck, went to the stores as a store clerk. And from there, I seen and witnessed people buying Lysol, Scope, Extra Vanilla, Extra Vava, shaving lotions. I said, what all these people buying these stuff for? They contain alcohol. They're good. Uh, Never mind both those, but I end up doing all this stuff with my friends. And by the time I was 23, 24, I had my own place. I'm still single. I got into the mining business as a equipment operator. For the next 20 years, every 2 weeks, $4,000 to $5,000 after tax. I pay my rent. I didn't care about food, but I'll make sure I had booze, drugs, and women. For the next 2 weeks, I just 24/7, the people come and go. For the next 20 years, I just went on like that. By the time I was 28, 29, I wasn't really into getting into a relationship, but I asked this sugar mama, when you spend the night with me? It's Valentine weekend. And the one night stand happened to be 15 long years with one kid. Wow. After being shocked up and married for 15 years, I couldn't hack it. She controlling my money, my booze, my drugs, my timing, everything is just under bed. And so after 15 years, I just walked up with my clothes on my back. I signed 3 vehicles to her, the house, and I gave her $36,000. Okay, there you go. I'm out. So from there on, I just went on my own. And I'm going couch surfing, house to house. By 2013, 14, I became a homeless. My siblings, my cousins, my own people, my old friends, they all rejected me. Why? Because of me. I became a thief, a liar, and a cheater. At that time, nobody wants to hang around with me. So I became a suicidal and ended up in a psycho ward, 8 weeks. After 8 weeks, the psychiatrist wouldn't let me out, so I went on a hunger strike. And finally, they got hold of my counselor, and my counselor contacted me, and he found a Fresh Start, a treatment center for me here in Calgary. And he came to visit me about 3 or 4 times. Then he asked me if I would like to go to Calgary for the treatment. I said, what's treatment? Do they teach you how to make drink, smoke weed, fuck women, steal, all this kind of stuff. No, 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 no. It's opposite. Okay, let's give it a try, even though I hate it. I don't want to go. I don't want to do it. No, 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 no. But I went ahead. In April 2017, I landed at the First Star Treatment Center. Here, walking into a treatment center, not knowing one soul and not sure about 12 steps. Wasn't really into the treatment, but I ran to the counselor, introduced me around and all this stuff. And when he gave me a tour around the facility there, we came into a gym and I seen all the Calgary Flames, the jerseys up there, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, 35 years. I told her, what's all these numbers? Why there's so many 5, 10, 15, 20 years on it? And he says, these are the sobriety jerseys. When you reach 5 years, you get a jersey. You get it 10 years, you get a 10-year jersey, and you get to go home with 5-year jersey. And in my back of my mind, I want that. I want it. And from there on, I went to counseling session. I hated. I did not want anyone to know my soul stories, how I was, who I was, who I am, how I became. And I still have the attitude, don't tell me what to do. Even though at the beginning, I told my counselor that my English language is my second language. I don't know how to read and write, that's it. If you want me to do the paperwork, all this work, you have to explain it to me specifically, step by step. Use the small words, I said. So from there on, as I start working the steps, got a sponsor, got a home group. My first meeting that they showed me at the garden block downstairs, and as as I walked in, I sat way back in the corner, and I had my head down. I don't want the chairperson to select me to speak. And I'm scared, I'm shy, I'm fear of letting people know about my sad stories. And every time somebody spoke, he's talking about me. He's got my stories. We're in the same shoes. You're no longer alone. Slowly but surely, my head's starting to rise. And I find out I wasn't alone. And I cry like a baby about it. And I started opening it up. And to this day, 8 years, I still go to 3 to 5 meetings a week. In the last 8 years that I've been here, I did about 4 speaker meetings so far. Now today, I'm not ashamed. I'm not afraid. I like to save at least one soul to turn around their life. And that will be the most things for me to do. And now I read a lot, even though my English, the reading is not good, but I'm pushing myself right to the limit. The most disgusting stories I have is the attempted murder. That people told me that I was crazy, I was stupid, I did a lot of crazy things, robbing people, robbing stores, robbing bootleggers. breaking into people's house, especially the bootleggers, because I want the booze. Um, Most of the crime that I did, I worked alone, and I did most of the B&E while the teacher was at work, the nurse worked, the store manager that worked, and I did all this stuff in the back. But as this, as I hit the step 8 at the treatment center, I froze and I wrote "I'm sorry" letters to all the anonymous people, the nurse, teachers, store managers, the clerk, and all these people that I robbed, I stole, I harmed them. And I asked them for forgiveness. That was one of the hardest things. And one of the best things that ever happened to me in my recovery is step 4 and 5. When I hit the step 4, my counselor told me to write all the stuff that had happened to me and what I did to others through with alcohol. And when they mentioned sex conduct, I ran out of the door. On step 4, I probably walked out of the room at least 3 or 4 times. But my counselor, my support group, they dragged me back in. They gave me a one-on-one talk. They helped me a lot. And one thing that got the best out of it is my counselor told me, once you do step 5, nobody has to know about it. It's between your sponsor or the priest. Okay. Um, the Father's Day weekend, 2017, on my way to the St. Mary's Church to do my step 5. And I had this about 5,000 pounds of garbage on me. I was so grumpy, miserable, and so cranky, and I don't want to do that. And as I walked into the church, and I explained to the priest that I like to make a confession. The step 5, the way it goes is admitting to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrong. So I started laying these cards on a table, step by steps. As I go in on it, just make me weak and dropping, and I start puking, crying, and I pee my pants and fucking screaming, yelling, and I just dropped everything at once. Three 3 hours, and once I'm done, and I walked out, and I was flying. Now I can breathe. Now I can hold my head up high. I can look at people. I can smile. I can communicate. And it was so amazing. And from there on, all the steps, the principle, it just came in place. The step 10 is the most important one for me, which I do every day, daily. Even my roommates, the people that I ran into on the street, that my homeboy people, that all the people that I know, and I don't like, I don't hold anything back anymore. I just let it out. And one thing is, 6 years ago, August 2019, I lost my mom. My second year into sobriety, I went back home to bury her. And here, my siblings, my cousins, my own people, my old friends. Robert, you must be heartbroken. let's go drink. I said, no, no, no. You guys go ahead. I don't do that anymore. For 40 years, all they know me is being alcoholic and drug addict. In August 2019, when they offered me, I refused it. And the answer they gave me, why, you think you're better than us because you're living in Calgary and you're sober? I said, no, 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 no. I'm worse than you. I'm getting myself a help. So that's one of the reasons that I don't drink. I don't do drugs anymore. And with that, after burying my mom, and I took my dad to his one of the rooms, and we had a chit chat for about 45 minutes. I explained to him that whatever happens to him, I'm not going to be back for your funeral, I said. And he said, it's all right, as long as I know about it. But keep your sobriety. That's the most important thing for me. As long as I know that you're not doing drugs or alcohol, I know you'll be okay. So with that, February 2023, I lost them, but I then went back home. I let my older brothers and sisters look after it. And to this day, I'm still blessed with 6 brothers and 3 sisters. Now, my younger sister and my older sister. Out of 9, only 2 talk to me. They communicate with me. Other 7, 6, they won't look at me. They won't mention to me anything. It's all right. But I pray for them that someday they'll follow our footsteps into sobriety. And one of the things that I made a promise to myself after burying my mom was make a strong foundations. What do you call the surrounding? A boundary that I don't want nothing to do with my people anymore. Or if they want my help, I can do whatever I can. If I have the answer, yes, I would. But to communicate and help them, it's going to be a really tough one. It's been almost 8 years that I left them. One of the reasons that I know about my people is their mouth is a gun. Their words is a bullet. They don't want you to achieve anything good. As soon as they find out you're doing good, they will do all kind of, or say all kind of bad things about you on your back to bring you down. That's why I see a lot of my friends that come here, they go back, they relapse or die. I encourage a lot of them to stay and start fresh without alcohol and drugs. Yesterday, we had a graduate, one of a young person that I know. He's about 30, 32 years old. His second time at the treatment center. I encourage him to stay and start fresh, even though he's starting a family back home. But I told him, you need your indication, your trade, your red mark, your anything. Just stick around for at least 3 to 6 months. Just try it out. If you fail, you fail. It's good. You learn from it. If you're homesick, you can always go back. Your home will be there. But what you're going to see is there's no change in your community. The lack of resources, the lack of a support, the lack of an AA meeting. There's not going to be very much, but the relapse will be right at the tip of your finger, ready for you to grab the drinks or smokes or do whatever you did in the past. So with my words, he's sticking around, and I'm so happy for him. These kind of things that we encourage young people to do, you know, we as elders, we learn this stuff on the first-hand experience, and we pass it on. The other friend that I had a few years ago, he's about the same age as me, and I encouraged him to stay, so he stayed, and he gone to schooling, and he got sober living housing. The first 3, 4 months, he's doing all right. But as soon as he got this $6,000, boom, out the door, back home. 2 months later, 3 months later, they found him frozen to death. So sad. Uh, Speaking of death, I've been through a lot. I've been stabbed, vehicle accidents, boat accidents, house fire. If you name any kind of the death in the book, I was there. The only reason I'm here today is because of God's help. I'm a survivor. Thank you.
Awesome, Robert. Yeah, you are a survivor, man, and watching you and the program and how you've changed too, and yeah, it's just been a beautiful journey watching you as well. And we didn't know each other real early in our journeys, but over the years we've gotten to know each other better. Um, and one thing that you touched on that I would like you to touch on a little bit more, that you were just touching on about your buddy also, is the environment. Like the environment for us in our recovery is so important, right? What have you seen about people that stay in the environment, stay in treatment, stay with people in recovery? What do you see that happens to them versus people that go back to their old environment?
What I see is the other thing that I learned at the treatment center is the connections with the treatment center. They ask us to go back weekly, daily, to keep contact and connect with the staff, other people, and the clients, and to do service work, all this kind of stuff. But there's some people, their lack of it, they don't want to be told what to do or what to say. They don't want to do the work. These are the stubborn ones. I'm one of them. And the people who go back out, I see and hear a lot of people relapse. And I see a lot of names go back out. And if you look or go to the first start at the gym window way towards the back, you see those windows names. Those are the people that didn't make it back out. They're dead. They're no more alive. And like I said earlier, one of the things that I learned is keep connections with the treatment center. Even though I'm 8 years sober and clean, and I said I still go there weekly, daily, hourly. I like to communicate. I like to encourage young people. What's the 12 steps it's all about? Is the big book, the sponsor, the home group. This kind of stuff, it saves lives. One thing I'd like to say is by me walking into the treatment center and working the 12 steps program, it saved and changed my life. I dedicate myself to the program. That's what they offer me. At the beginning, I didn't like it. I hate it. Don't tell me what to do. But now I'm right into it. So thank you.
Okay, awesome, Robert. We're running a little bit over time, so I'm gonna get us wrapped up here. One more thing while we have everybody on the screen is I'd like to get Claudia Simpson to come on and just say a few words to end this off, and then for the very end, I will turn the cameras on to the whole group of us, and we will have my daughter sing us out. Go ahead, Claudia. Thank you for everything.
Yes, for sure. I just want to thank each and every one of the speakers today. It was very inspirational again. Stories, we've been doing this. I think this is like Bill mentioned at the opening, is like our third time. Actually, him facilitating and us hosting this for anyone who's interested. On reserve, off reserve, or anywhere else that the poster might be seen. So I just like again say thank you so much for the inspirational stories of recovery, and that every story helps someone somewhere. And I'm hearing it through Robert saying if he helps one person, then get on the path of recovery, then it means so much, and that is so impactful to hear, because it's actually very, very true. So again, thank you, Bill, for facilitating. Thank you for the opening song. Thank you for your daughter for her song, Lucy, and everyone. Thank you so much. Marcicho, hi.
Thank you, Claudia. Okay, Robert, why don't you come on out here and we'll gather around in a little half circle, and Lucy will sing us out, and that'll be a wrap until the next time. I will just shut my camera off for 1 minute. Okay. Okay, Lucy.
Hey, 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 yeah, hey, oh, yeah, hey, oh, hey, hey, yeah, hey, oh, yeah, hey, oh, hey, hey, yeah, hey, oh, hey, hey, hey. Yah-hee-oh, yah-hee-oh, hey, hey, yah-hee-oh, yah-hee-oh, hey, hey, yah-hee-oh, hey, 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 yah-hee-oh, yah-hee-oh, hey, hey, yah-hee-oh, yah-hee-oh, hey, hey, yah-hee-oh, hey, 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 yah-hee-oh, yah-hee-oh, hey, hey, yah-hee-oh, yah-hee-oh, hey, hey, yah-hee-oh.
Thank you, everybody.